Bam. You guys get to see live footage of Jacob manipulating his phone.
This is so cool, man.
This is
Who knew?
This is a first for me. I've never seen. Oh goodness, Facebook.
So fun fact, like Brooklyn has the Note, so her stylus works on her phone, but no one else's for some reason.
Yeah.
Like it won't work on mine, but I can use a 223 bullet as a stylus on my phone, and I'll only have to replace the screen protector
Every couple of minutes. Yeah. Well,
this
folks,
is super cool.
We've got a special guest today, Greg Peete in the house.
What's going on?
You got a couple of things going on that we're going to talk about here shortly, but it's Wednesday. We're here, always a few minutes late. Keep you the anticipation building.
Keep you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah. If you guys hear any issues with the stream or anything like that, please let me know. Drop a comment on the page if there's some sound issues or anything like that. We want to make sure that you guys can hear everything that we're talking about and everything that is going on. So I will turn it over to you, Jacob. What is going on with you, man?
Well, not a whole lot. I'm excited to talk to you. We've been trying to get this together for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
And you've been one busy guy. Yeah. So tell me what you're into, man.
So we started Battleground 22 Foundation December of last year. Mm-hmm. And basically the foundation covers veterans and first responders. We saw a huge need. I'm sorry, I was looking down to see who was following because say this before somebody sees it. But we saw a huge need a few years ago. We fought with the Vandenberg County commissioners because we weren't getting the help that we needed at the courthouse.
Evansville, right?
In Evansville.
Yeah.
And, you know, then general consensus, we reached out to some of the veterans here in Owensboro. We reached out to Henderson, Illinois, Iowa. I mean, all over the place. And it's the same thing. You know, the counties have these guys that they claim are VSOs that are paid thousands of dollars to help veterans do their VA disability claims and do everything else. These guys collect a paycheck, and then when a veteran comes in and says, hey, I need help, they hand them a piece of paper and they send them on their way.
Yeah.
So I was like, how can we negate this whole entire thing of those guys not just getting a piece of paper and actually getting the help that they need? So I got together with a big group of my friends, and I was like, hey, we're going to start a 501c3. And my wife, God bless her soul, after everything that we've been through since November till now, trying to get all this thing up and running, she was like, just take it day by day. Well, you know, like last night we're sitting talking on the couch, and I was like, hey, I want to do this with the foundation. And she just looks at me and she goes, you just literally went full circle from like 3 things to 50 million things. You know, how are we going to handle this? And I was like, it's just going to happen. So, of course, last night I'm on the phone with my board of directors telling them, you know, hey, I'm doing this podcast. I've got this going. And the guys are just shaking their head and they're like, we've got to get you leveled out to the point where we can just focus on one thing right now. But so we're doing VA disability claims. We have a big group of networking of attorneys and claims reps. So if a veteran needs help, they can come to us, hit us up on our Facebook or on our website. We get all their information. We send it to our claims people. Where we're different than everybody else is we don't charge. So, like, we will not charge to file an initial claim, which that's what me and Caleb were talking about earlier. It's funny because I had a veteran reach out to me. He's actually from Henderson, Kentucky. And he's like, yeah, this lawyer that I'm using wants to charge me $2,800, like right off the top to file my claim. And then they're going to charge me 36% on my back end when I get, or, you know, once we get done.
Let me hit the brakes for a second. So for me and everyone else who has no idea how veteran disability and benefits work. So if you're in the service, you have TRICARE, right? And once you retire from the service, you still are covered through TRICARE? You
can be. But guys like me, well, let's take Cassie, for example.
Cassie's a previous podcast guest.
Yeah. Cassie, like if she wouldn't have re-upped and she would have just got out, she was eligible to take TRICARE if she wanted.
What's the eligibility requirements?
You've got to serve so much time to be able to have TRICARE. But the flip side of that is if you don't retire, you pay for it. So, like, you know, you see guys on TV like Leroy Petrie and Kyle Carpenter. Those guys are 100% disabled. Like 100%. You know, we went overseas, we did what we had to do, and we ultimately got injured. So when we get home, it's one big bureaucratic red tape nightmare fighting with the VA to say, hey, while I was there, I got blown up. Now I have migraines, now my back hurts, my knees hurt, this or that. And instead of having a streamlined process to where they can just look at everything and it be easy for a veteran, no, you've got to get all these other people involved in all this paperwork. And then it takes, it can take, or I know guys that are in the system now that it's taken 10 years to get like 50%.
See, it seems weird to me. Like it would seem like for veterans in particular, like you would go to basically like a veteran hospital where they wouldn't even ask for billing information. Like you just, that's your hospital. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's when you say like you're talking to a vet who has to get a lawyer that's charging $2,800 just off the top to make a claim. So you're just making a claim to the VA. You have to have a lawyer to do so?
No, you don't have to. Every county, especially Indiana, with every county in Indiana, the county commissioners or city, wherever that the veteran services falls under, what they do is they have a guy or a girl that is designated a veteran service officer. They went to a school, just basically like me and you would for our jobs. They got certified in this. Then they sent off a whole bunch of paperwork to the government and got background checks. And now those guys are the ones that are eligible to file your claim for you. So, and when you're talking about claims, it's kind of a nightmare anyway, because what they do is you file. Like you could come to me and say, hey man, my knees hurt, my back hurts, I pee orange for some reason or this or that. And we might have 50 things that we wrote down. And then when we push it to the VA might look at it and be like, well, there's no way that this will work, or there's no way that this happened at all. So they'll just go ahead and deny that one, like just a quick, fast, and in a hurry. So then the VA will say, okay, well, we'll do the claim in-house. So you come back to the VA hospital and you have a whole bunch of people there that are meticulously microscoping you, trying to make sure that what you're claiming is actual truth. Or you've got like 6 different agencies on the outside that the government pays for, to where they do what they call compensation and pen exams. So you basically go, like the last one I went to, I drove to Hopkinsville. There's a psychiatrist out there. That's what she does for a living. She just works with VA. So they had me drive from Evansville to Hopkinsville. I sat down. I was in a little room about this size. I sat in a chair. She sat on the couch. We talked for about 45 minutes. She's like, okay, that's all I got for you. Got in my car, drove all the way back home. And then I waited 8 weeks after that to find out that, hey, this lady said you're not as crazy as what everybody thinks you are. So, so then you have to refile the claim and go through an appeals process and everything else. Once you get to like the appeals process, or what they call a higher level of review, that's when you have to get the lawyers involved.
Oh, okay. So if they deny it, you appeal it, and they deny it again, that's when you have to get a lawyer involved.
Yeah. And I mean, there are guys out there that, that's what they want to do. They want to use a lawyer first off. But then you've got these other companies. I won't mention any of them right now, but you've got other companies that are, hey, come to us, pay this money, and we're going to fill out all your disability benefit questionnaires, DBQs, and we'll input everything and we'll give it to you. And then you file that with the VA, hoping that it's going to streamline the process. What a lot of people aren't realizing, though, is you got these companies and they're for-profits. You've got non-for-profits like myself and CJ3 Foundation out in Virginia that, we're there to help veterans. We're actually a veteran-ran, like veteran board of directors, and that's what we do for a living, is we strive to help veterans. We don't get a paycheck, but then you've got other guys, like if you turn on the news, and Trace Adkins is one of their spokespersons. That's all I'll say about that company. They're worth $1 billion plus, and they're paying their CEO and their director $187,000 to $387,000 a year, and he's going out buying private jets and taking veterans all over the United States, and they wind up in the news every other day. So in the not-for-profit realm, it kind of sucks from time to time, because we're all vying for one big pot of money from the government. So, like we do fundraisers, we do golf scrambles. We're possibly getting ready to come out with our own bourbon line.
That'd be cool.
Hey,
with the
if
help.
you do, let us know.
Yeah, we're big bourbon drinkers.
We've been known to drink a few bottles.
And we're like right in the town to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, we were just
Tyler
I was actually just on the phone with the veteran-owned bourbon company based out of Indianapolis on the way
Okay.
here. I know the guy real well, Hotel Tango, and we were talking about the possibility of my foundation doing a one-off line of theirs and basically bottling it as our brand, going up sampling whiskey, getting hammered drunk with a big group of veterans and being like, that's the best one, and then buying that barrel and saying, here you go forth, and this is the Battleground 22 bourbon.
Well,
So,
while you picked that, I can't, as a Kentuckian in good faith, approve an Indianapolis bourbon.
actually, you'd be surprised because there's a distillery company in Indiana that distributes basically all the Indiana companies buy bourbon from. Like the last run that I got from a buddy of mine who owns a distillery, it's actually Dickel. It's like it's a Dickel and a spinoff of Pappy Van Winkle mixed that's aged 12 years. And I was like, so you got Kentucky bourbon? He goes, no, man, it came from Indiana. And I was like, no, you don't understand. It came from Kentucky. It's a transplant, you know? So, but yeah, we're looking at doing some really cool things coming up to be able to get some money. Like I said earlier, my wife is kind of beside herself right now because I love her to death, but I'm 900 miles a minute when I'm at home and somebody calls and they're like, hey, what about this? And I'm like constantly thinking, okay, we can make this work, but where does it fit in with our plan? So now we've got the 3 main things that we focus on right now, and I've got like 10 things or just hanging out in the wind right now because I'm trying to figure out how to fund those projects.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What are your 3 main things?
So we're doing VA disability claims, and like I said, we've got lawyers and everybody else that can help us out with that. We also do mental health. And the mental health piece of this is super cool. I can't announce it just yet because the contracts aren't done, but we are partnering with a huge name, not only for first responders, but for veterans. And he owns a camp down in Georgia. So we're going to be able to send veterans and first responders down there to get mental health treatment. We've also got a place out in Virginia that we can send people to. We got a place out in California. Think there's one in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. So we
whole network.
Yeah, we've partnered with everybody that we partner with is either a veteran or a veteran-based company, because I don't want it falling into the bureaucratic hands of, hey, we hand this veteran off to somebody and it's ran by a big group of civilians that they're like, oh, well, your problem is not really that bad, because ultimately, the second you start doing that, that's when, they ultimately, become a statistic.
Right.
So we're doing the mental health piece, and then we're also focusing on advocacy, and we're looking at doing some housing very soon too. So we've partnered with a great organization in CJ3 Foundation, which that's the pictures you were seeing on my Facebook. We were just part of their process not too long ago where where CJ3 Foundation gave a dog to a very deserving female combat veteran, which kind of broke the mold and the stigma across the board. Because when you look at it, there's not very many female combat veterans that have dogs.
Yeah.
So there's not very many female combat veterans that are recognized either. So it was when Eric called me and he was like, hey, man, come to Iowa, see this process, and then go to the kennel with us and watch her get this dog. And I'm like, I'm in. I was laying in bed and I told my wife, I was like, I'm packing. Where are you going, Iowa and Wisconsin? She was like,
okay.
Yeah. She's like, you realize there's a snowstorm, right? And I was like, I'm not driving, I'm flying this time.
I'm not going over it.
So I flew from Evansville, or actually I flew from Nashville, which was a horrible idea.
You drove 3 hours through the snowstorm to fly.
You would think. So we left at like 3:45, 4 o'clock in the morning. We got me to my gate at 8:30. And that was straight through. We stopped in Henderson to get gas and grab snacks. And that entire time was stuck on the road, driving from Kentucky to Nashville to get me to the gate. So I get there and I'm like, all right, we're good. I fly from there to Detroit. We land in Detroit and it's like 28 degrees. I was like, this is nice. I could deal with this.
Take the jacket off.
Yeah. Well, we get into Des Moines, Iowa, and I land in Delta, how they do their little announcement. Welcome to Des Moines, Iowa. The current temperature is negative 26. And I'm like, what? I'm like,
Take me home.
Yeah, I was like, where did we go
Wait, turn
wrong?
around.
So I landed and I was just hanging out for a little bit.
Start looking out the windows for penguins and polar bears.
It wasn't 5 minutes after I landed. I get a email from Eric's foundation, and they're like, hey, his flight's been delayed. He won't be there for at least another hour and a half. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do for this amount of time?
Especially in Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah, so naturally I sat at the bar and had a few drinks because we were getting a rental car to drive to where we were going.
And by the bar, it was just in the middle of a cornfield? Or?
Yeah, pretty much. So I walked outside to smoke the first cigarette after I'd gotten off the plane, and I took 2 hits of it and just dropped it. And I was like, no, we're good.
It's too cold.
And that's enough for me.
Oh, man.
It was pretty much like that the entire trip. I mean, we saw, I think we had a heat wave one day to where it was like negative, or it was like -2. And
well, that's not bad.
Yeah, then we
Mow
start.
your grass in that weather.
Yeah, we start driving to Wisconsin and it's like 6 degrees. And we're like, this is awesome,
Warm as hell over here.
Yeah, we get there and we get out of the truck, or we get out of the car and we walk into the kennel and we're hanging out with Jesse. And I was like, I'm gonna go outside and smoke a cigarette. And I walk outside, and of course, where his kennel is at, it's surrounded pretty much by cornfields.
Yeah.
So there's nothing blocking the wind at all. And the wind hits me, and I'm on the thing. I'm like, Iron Ridge, Wisconsin weather, what's it like right now? And they're like, oh, with wind chill, it's like -12. And I'm like, I can handle this. So, but it was super nice. We got to see everything. Eric's got one hell of a process that veterans go through. So
Sounds like freezing to death is the first part of that process.
It can be. He's got a guy that's boots on ground right now. They're giving away their 5th dog this month or this year.
How much do those dogs usually run? They're not cheap.
So the whole entire process for Eric with travel, the dog training, and everything else, and the mental health piece of it, I think he told me it's somewhere around like $25,000 per veteran.
Wow.
So I mean, he's
That's
in
a
a
commitment.
different he's in a different boat than me because I can raise $5,000 and help like 8 veterans. He raises $5,000 and it's like a small drop in the bucket on paying off a dog.
Like only 15 grand more.
Yeah, and he calls me all the time. He's like, hey, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. I need you to share it on Battleground 22. I need you to do this. And the one thing that I can say is when you're friends with somebody, it's real easy to work with them. So he tells me, hey, I need help with this. We try to, Battleground 22 tries to help him out as much. It was kind of surreal seeing his process because while we were there, I was talking to his mom and dad, and they were in contention to get a house that the city was going to basically sell them for, I don't even know what the total amount of it was, or donate it, one of the two. And that's where he was going to house veterans at, which was right across the street from his mom and dad. So when they came in for the mental health piece, they didn't have to be halfway across town. They could be right there in case they had an issue. So, that's a big thing right now. We're getting ready to start a huge fundraiser for him off our website to make sure that we can help support his mental health piece of it and make sure veterans get dogs. But, I mean, he's got, I think when we talked today, I think he's got like 4 or 5 more in the pipeline.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What are the dogs like specifically for? Just emotional support? Or?
No, we don't do any emotional support dogs at all. These are actually fully trained service dogs. So,
super cool.
And we are every place that actually it's kind of funny because Jesse, the one that owns the kennel, is on my board of directors, and that's where we all met through was Jesse through another foundation. Eric and I became real good friends. So all the dogs that are coming in are actually police and military quality dogs, but Jesse sees something in them, which he's tried to explain it to me before. I'd be lying if I could tell you the science behind it. I mean, he knows it.
Caesar Milan over there.
Yeah, he knows what he's looking for, and when he sees that they have an off switch, like you guys see cops all the time. You see Malinois, they're sitting there spinning around and going after dope and jumping through 4-story windows and stuff. That's the kind of dogs that they're using for service dogs.
Really?
Because, they're so mellow, or some of them are so mellow that you can take them. Like, we could be sitting here right now, and I could put a dog underneath the table. You'd never hear a word from him the rest of the time while we're here.
I wish my dog could do that.
He is very incapable of that.
She loves people very deeply. Does not know how to show
level.
it.
Yeah, on a very deep level.
Gosh, that's a really awesome thing to be able to get them not just, like you said, emotional support animals, but fully trained service dogs that have, they can help and be like very useful to people that like need that sort of structure with animals, because they also, like you said, they're mellow, but I'd assume too they also need a little bit of structure too. So
Yeah.
taking care of an animal, like I know from personal experience, like I got a dog because I felt like I needed one, and I know that getting a service animal that is, you know, not going to come into your home, destroy it, make you stressed out, and you're going to end up having to get rid of.
Everywhere with you too.
Yeah, and they can go everywhere. So it's like having a personal companion that is like bonded to you.
Yeah.
So it's really cool, man. Good. Do tell more. I'm interested more in these foundations.
It's
and how
like
people get there.
Eric. He flies with Havoc all the time. Like they flew from, or he lives out just outside of DC.
Great name for a calm service animal.
Right. Yeah. So he
Batshit crazy.
he flew from DC in and then landed in Iowa, and Eric's walking through the terminal. And of course, I'm black hoodie, got my mask on and everything else. His dog just kind of stops and looks, and I'm like, oh crap.
This is my dog Psychopath.
Yeah. So I pulled my mask off real quick and yell his name, and his tail's just going 900 miles a minute, and he let him come to me and get loved on.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I know you.
Yeah.
But I mean, we did, while we were in Iowa, we sat through like 4 or 5 meetings. Like we went to locations to have meetings, and Eric will put Havoc like underneath the table, and he just instantly lays down, and he's like, okay, we're good. You know, until one of us gets stressed out that he knows, and he'll come over and nudge you and be like, hey, focus on me and love on me for a little bit, and you know, and then I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing and being a dog. But it's really cool to see, because these dogs are so mellow, but then the second you pop their vest off of them, they're a normal dog. I mean, you know, you get a Malinois that's got a high ball drive, and of course, you pull out a ball when they're in their vest, they're still going to go just absolutely batshit crazy.
Yeah.
But when they're out of their vest, they're like, oh, okay, mommy or
Playtime.
daddy's going to let me play. So,
Right.
you know, it's nothing for when we go up to the kennel. We have an annual Battle Buddy games. So all the veterans that are involved in multiple foundations bring their dogs in for recertification. And I think it was 5 years ago, I screwed up. I had a tennis ball. And I was walking through a line of dogs, and I dropped it, and I mean, you could have heard a pin drop after it was done, because every dog's looking at me. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, hi, we're good. Ball's out there, and they just went back to what they were doing. And I
That's
was
so
like,
funny.
this is, well, and, you know, and I'm like, yeah, somebody's going to get lit up here in a minute. I'm keep doing this.
These are our service dogs. Trainwreck, Jeffrey Dahmer,
Havoc, destruction.
It's,
Thor.
it's funny to me,
Thanos.
because when you talk about service dogs, you know, I see what Jesse produces, and I see what Eric is producing with CJ3 Foundation and some of these other foundations. But my wife works in the mall, right in the middle of Eastland Mall. And the greatest thing about her being in Eastland Mall is she'll call me from time to time, hey, let's have lunch. And I'll be sitting there, and I see a dog come in with a service dog vest. And I look at my wife, and I'm like, $50 that dog's not trained. Well, how can you tell? And then the dog's like chasing its tail. They go to put it underneath the table, and it's like flipping tables. And I'm like, told you, you know?
Right.
It was like, hey, I think I still owe you money from somehow or another. You married me, so just keep that. You
Just
know?
keep it.
But yeah, I mean, the greatest thing that we've seen so far is we were in Walmart the other night. Some lady walked in, and she had this little Pomeranian. I mean, thing was like just one big ball of fur.
Yeah.
She's got it in a little vest, and she's holding it like that. And the lady at Walmart goes, ma'am, you can't have that dog in here. And she started spouting off all these ADA criterias and everything else. And she goes, well, my dog is registered. Here's its service dog paperwork. I'm standing within earshot, and I went, okay. I was like, how much did you pay on the internet for that? She just kind of looked at me like appalled, and I started walking away.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I hate to be that person to say this, but to bring advocacy and awareness for the service dog piece. There is no service dog registry. But these, like the dogs that Jesse and Eric are putting out, they're so highly trained that they or that.
Oh, yeah?
But
Not gonna let that one
I
slip.
can't. I have the brain of a 5-year-old, and it'll never change.
But I mean, before Jesse gives them to a recipient, I mean, they live inside a house to make sure that they don't like destroy the house. They're constantly trained. I think Eric told me it was like 8 months before he had actually seen Havoc. Like Havoc got here from overseas, landed, and they did 8 months straight to of training before they gave him to Eric, and then Eric, had to learn how to be a part of that dog.
Right.
Well, Eric, I won't say what he does for a living, but he works for the government in D.C. So, I mean, he's constantly up at Capitol Hill. He's constantly, different random offices and everything. And this dog goes everywhere with him.
That's
so, I mean,
super
you
cool.
got to think, you've got to have a dog that is 100% wired tight that literally, you have no mistakes. Especially, in Eric's situation when he's in D.C. because that dog acts a fool, and they're gonna be like, you can't have that dog in here anymore. So
those dogs are so cool. Like I've only ever I've seen a couple, but I've only ever been like around one closely. Is that you live in Evansville, right?
Yeah.
So at the Evansville airport, the Enterprise there, it's the Enterprise service base. That you probably never been down to there, but we service vehicles down there, and the manager has a service dog, and he's got a big sign on the door that says service dog on premises. And you walk in, and that dog's always just like never blinks an eye, never moves. Like he's just right there with the guy at all times. Like it's super cool.
Yeah, there's some great organizations that are doing work, that are actually taking their time to do it. I've seen a lot of these fly-by-day, fly-by-night operations that they're like, oh, look, we're training service dogs. And then you watch what they put out, and it's like, yeah, I don't really want to get within an arm's reach of you because your dog's going to go spastic.
Yeah.
So
What's the third pillar?
We're doing advocacy. So we've got the mental health piece, we've got the housing piece, and we've got the VA disability claims, but we're also doing advocacy. Like Eric, he's real good friends with a lot of sitting senators and congressmen. So they're trying to push legislation through up in Washington, D.C. I was fortunate enough, I ran for state representative last year, lost, unfortunately. I was just the wrong person in the wrong area to be running that race. But I got to know a lot of the state legislators, and they call me from time to time, and they're like, hey, would you like to work on some legislation with us? So we're able to reach out to them and say, hey, this is what we're seeing in the VA system, or this is what we're seeing in the state. We really need help. Can you help us? And, they'll sit down and have a conversation with you, understand what you need and where you need to go with it. And then ultimately it falls on their shoulders because they write the bill, push it through the House, push it through the Senate, and then the governor signs it into law. And it's like, awesome. That's an awesome win for us. We've got two great state representatives right now in Evansville that I'm working with that we're getting ready to start some legislation. I'm waiting for them to get done with this session before we kind of pile some stuff on them. They keep in contact with me. Hey, what do you want to do? I want to do a service dog piece. I want to do this. I want to do an advocacy piece. And, they're really cool and really receptive about it. So we'll see how well it goes. We're slowly starting to branch out now. We've got some vets in Kentucky. We've got some vets out in California and New York. We started this as it was supposed to be local. Like we really wanted to focus on the local population in Indiana, especially in Evansville, because in Evansville we got like 15,000 vets. Damn. But then one night we crossed the bridge, and I was over here hanging out with Cassie. Like when both of us were home, we started talking to some local vets, and I was like, "You guys don't have anything over here," and they're like, "No, we don't." So our lawyer that we work with real close. Is coming over from time to time filing VA disability claims for them. So now we're starting to do some advocacy over here as well. Yeah. I really wish I could say that it was an easy task, but everything goes through the Senate, and we all know Mitch McConnell is an absolute nightmare to deal with. Right. Don't mean to bring up any bad
worries.
Stuff. So. But yeah,
I mean, anyone under 70 agrees with you.
Yeah. So it was like today. I had an issue. We had to call his office in Louisville, where he's at, and explain who I was, explain what I wanted, explain why we needed a meeting. And the girl tells me over the phone, "Well, you can just bring those veterans to us, and we'll help them." I'm like, "Cool. Give me a time frame. 6 months to a year." And I'm like, do you really think that
10-4?
Yeah, I was like, do you really think that these veterans that we have 6 months to a year to wait for somebody in DC to make a decision on their behalf? I was like, we're trying to advocate because one of them called me because he needed a house. He's living in a homeless shelter.
Yeah.
So, of course, we have a mortgage company that we work exclusively with, so we can do home buying and credit repair for the veteran. So we put him through that program, and I just got a phone call later on this afternoon on the way here that he was like, "Hey man, my credit came back. I got a job. I've been at my job a year." And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Your mortgage company tells me I'm ready to buy a house." And I'm like, that right there is the little victories that we like to see across the board because, you never know. He could have been suicidal.
Right.
But, what we do as a whole is we focus on the main issue, which is the VA claims, because that's going to take the longest out of everything. But then we also kind of network with them and say, "Hey, do you need a job?" Yes. Well, if they're Indiana residents, we're partnered now with a very large job placing company for veterans. And, we just send them to them. Those guys are vets too. They're like, "Hey man, thanks for the heads up." They help them get a job. And it's like, that's so cool. And then you kind of turn around and you call the mortgage company and it's like, "Hey, I just got Joey a job." Yeah. So can you start working on his credit for him while we're doing this? Yeah. And then he calls and, "Hey man, I need help with the VA. Give me a minute. Let me make a phone call." That's like my absolute specialty. I love yelling at people. I do. Cassie,
You got the voice for it, huh?
Yeah, Cassie will tell you I am the best person to get yelled at by because I will make you feel real stupid real quick, especially when it comes to veterans. But I've got a great working relationship with the VA now in Evansville, where I can pick up the phone and call a couple people, and I'm like, "Hey, I got a vet. He's originally from Owensboro, or he's originally from South Dakota. He's here in the Evansville area now. He needs to get in the system, and can you help me out?" And usually they'll bend over backwards for us real quick.
Awesome.
So, but like I said, we're competing for a bunch of money from a bunch of different not-for-profits because, you've got a lot of not-for-profits in Evansville that's what they do is they take care of vets. I'm not going to discredit them. Do I think that their programs could be more? Yes. But, then again, I'm also the same guy though too that thinks that one day we can just build one big veteran habitat somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. And
hey man, call Tim Kennedy. You might be able to set it up.
Right?
He'll fly him in.
Him and Crenshaw and all those guys. But yeah, I mean, that'd be awesome. Build one big veteran habitat out in the middle of nowhere. We have our own elections. We have our own house, own
Just
Senate.
a gun range and sleeping bags.
Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly how that would be. So
it's great hearing you so passionate about it, man. And so one thing I'm curious about is I know you know Cassie, and you said you're a veteran. So tell me some more about you. Like, how did this all get started? Where did this passion kind of originate from?
So let me check this real quick. I had you guys pulled up just to see who I could see who all was on your live stream. But no, I mean I did my time. I had a blast doing it. I would do it all over again if I could. Unfortunately, I'm way too broken according to the VA to be able to function in military uniform ever again.
When did you join up?
The end of 2005, and I served all the way until my release date was 15. So actually, I got out in 14.
I got you. What'd you do?
I was 11 Bravo in the Army.
Oh, wow, very cool.
So I just ran around getting to shoot stuff and do whatever. So
wearing your knees and back out.
Oh yeah. But if you ask the VA, that's not service connected because you didn't have to do that. No, carrying 80 pounds of gear.
It's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, going 12 miles in 4 hours. No, it's not. But I mean, how I got connected with this was I came home in 2013. Correct me if I'm wrong, Casey, because I see that you're watching. But I came home in 2013, and I had a mutual friend of mine. I'd been hitting on this girl for years at a bar, and one thing led to another. And he calls me. He goes, "Hey man, let's have a bonfire tonight. Drink some beer." Well, that's all I did when I got home. I mean, I kept Anheuser-Busch and Michelob Ultra and all those guys in business.
Course.
So we're out drinking in at his house, and she shows up, and I was like, "It's the same chick I've been hitting on." He's like, "Yeah." And I'm
That's
like,
my wife.
"Okay." It's what it is, Fast forward 7-8 years later, now we're married and have a house and everything.
That's awesome.
But there was a period in between the time that me and Casey got together and that I proposed that I went through some really dark shit. And I mean, like nightmares, everything else. I had a dog at that point in time. My dog unfortunately passed. you know, it was just one thing after another. She went to the VA with me. She got to see a side of me she never thought she'd ever see of me. I yelled at somebody in the middle of the VA, and she's like, "You can't do that." And I was like, "Watch," as I'm walking away. And I'm like, I give two shits, you know. I said what I had to say because they're ultimately not paying attention to me.
Right.
I know my body better than anybody. And then we had some little girl come out, and she was like, Mr. Peete, can you come with us? And I'm like, if I'm getting arrested, you know, let's just go ahead and do this. You know, all cards on the table. Let's go.
Yeah.
They take us back into a room, and they're explaining to my wife or my girlfriend, who's ultimately my wife now. They're explaining to her the process of how the VA works. And of course, I'm sitting there getting pissed, and I stopped and I looked
You
at her. I
come
was
in,
like,
and then we fuck around for a couple of years, and we deny your claims, and we give you the runaround. Oh, there's a couple hoops you got to jump through.
Yeah, and I looked at her and I was like, I give two shits about this girl time conversation.
Yeah.
You're either going to fix me and get me what I need, or we're going to drive 3.5 hours and go back home, and good luck getting me back up here again. And I walked outside. My wife had a conversation with this lady, and then ultimately it was, oh, well, you need to go to the 4th floor because this doctor is going to see you. And she was like, see, if you just talk to him nicely. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
You know, it was.
I have a lot
Talk
of that.
to him
I have a lot
nicely.
of that mentality.
Yeah. I think it was around 2014, somewhere. Yeah, it was November of 2014. I had some issues, and I was at the bottom of a barrel. Like, I had nowhere to go. I had a beautiful girl who absolutely loved me. You know, I had a family who cared and was always there for me, even though we've had our ups and downs. And, you know, I was sitting on the couch one afternoon, and I got drunk and grabbed a gun and grabbed a whole bunch of pills. And next thing you know, I don't remember it. I mean, she's told me it's happened 2 or 3 times. My mom's told me it's happened 2 or 3 times. I have, to each his own. Girls have better memories than us. But I guess I took a whole bunch of pills, and I wound up in intensive care. Like, I tried to kill myself. And
was that shit just haunting you from your deployments?
It was everything. Like, it was
pressure and...
it was just everything across the board. I had a great job. I was working for Toyota motor manufacturing at the time, making like $18, $19 an hour.
Yeah.
And I was ready to give up. Like, I couldn't see myself continuing down this road of, you know, one morning waking up and being like, I hate everybody, you know, and then the next morning waking up and being like, man, do I really have to go to work again? So what we didn't know on the back end of that was the night that I tried to kill myself, one of the guys that we had deployed with killed himself.
Oh, shit.
So I come to, I think it was like 2 days later, and I guess from what my wife tells me is in between that time, I had been awake a couple times, and I guess she said something and it triggered something. I don't even remember being awake until I was ultimately awake.
Yeah.
Getting ready to go home. And I guess I yelled at her, and somehow or another, even though I yelled at her, she realized that it was not 100% me because I had so much other stuff going on.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the end of the day, 7 years later, she's still married to me.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's days where I guarantee if we ask her, because she's on the live feed right now, I guarantee if we ask her if she would hit me with a baseball bat for money, she'd be like, where at? You know, where at?
You can keep
Show
your money.
me the money. And, you know, he's getting smoked. But when I
Look at the flowers.
Yeah, I came to her, and, you know, we started this fight with the county commissioners, and, you know, I said, you know, you guys have got to do something for us. And we kept getting the runaround. Yeah, you know, well, we're working on it. It's in the middle of an election cycle. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Well, here it is. And the next election cycle, we still haven't heard shit. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And then it becomes bureaucratic because the county attorney gets involved in, no, we can't do that because this guy's got 10 years. This guy's got this guy's got that. And I'm like, some more bullshit.
Right.
You know, but let's look at the overall big picture from 2007 when 4,800 troops came home back to the state of Indiana until 2017. We had like 6 veterans from the same unit commit suicide. And, you know, all in all, this dude's sitting in an office making $55,000 a year, plus all the other paychecks that he has from all these other deals that he's doing.
Yeah.
And he's not doing a damn thing. So I stood up, and I was working for that big corporation that was constantly in the news for doing dumb shit. And, I kind
Which
of
one?
right. I won't say their name because I'm probably will get sued if I do, if it ever gets leaked. But
This is live on the internet.
yeah, I was about to say,
It
but
didn't even get leaked.
only thing I can say is that that corporation, if you donate $20 a month within 4 to 6 weeks, you get a free blanket.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. So
What a deal.
yeah. But that $20 a month goes to private jets and everything else for all
absolutely.
these guys.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Somebody's gonna pay for it.
I saw a need while I was working with those guys, and I was like, eventually I'm going to do this. And I've been on the fence and on the fence and on the fence. And then halfway through my campaign cycle, a buddy of mine came to me who's a sitting elected official, and he's like, man, I got a problem with a veteran. And I was like, what do you got? He's explaining everything to me. Like, we're at a benefit. We've got the lieutenant governor here. We've got 2 sitting senators. We got a congressman here. He tells me this, and I turn around and I look at everybody. I was like, bye. They're like, oh, you're supposed to speak. Bye. I've got a veteran in crisis right now. We need to go handle this. So I just left. And everybody's like, where'd he go? Well, he went to go take care of this vet, and it was something simple as he could not get, he couldn't get the resources to be able to pay for his hotel room for another week. So, I made some phone calls to some benefactors that I know. They're like, oh, yeah, dude, just go ahead and tell them we've got it. We'll pay cash for it. If we need to if we need to do this till the end of the month, we've got it. And I'm like, great. That gives me time to be able to focus on that. About midway through my campaign, I saw the first set of poll numbers, and I was doing real good. And I told my wife, I was like, this could be a reality that I could possibly become a state representative. And I had all the guys at the fire department that were, hanging out with me and, hey, man, if you need help putting signs out or you need doing this, doing that, we're there for you. Everybody's sharing my stuff on Facebook. We're gaining all this traction. Well, what everybody didn't realize during the campaign cycle that my wife did was deep down inside, I was not happy. Like, this was the one thing I'll tell you about politics that a lot of people will not tell you is you might convince me to do something, and it might sound like a really good idea, and you have solid, like 100% solid foundation for telling me. But once you do it, and then you're no longer there, and it falls on my shoulders, it's lonely. I mean, you're getting out every day at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, having breakfast, shaking hands and talking to people, and then ultimately from 8 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, you're out walking around neighborhoods, knocking on doors, trying to sell yourself for a vote. I came home, and I think we were at like 60 days left for the election. I looked at Casey, and I was like, I'm going to start a foundation. She goes, will you focus on one thing, please? And I was like, no, we're starting this foundation. So I reached out to Eric with CJ3 Foundation, and I'm like, dude, I'm going to do this. Here's everything that I want to do. He's like, give me a couple days. Take a couple days, think about this, and make sure this is where you want to go, and we're going to do it. So here it is, why everybody sees this side of me, Greg Peete for state representative. What everybody doesn't see is Greg Peete, the veteran who's broken inside, that is trying to figure out how to help more veterans on a bigger level. And that's ultimately the reason why I jumped in the state representative race was because, when you're sitting it goes back to the old saying, which you guys have heard this a million times. If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, you got somebody who can't really get a lot of stuff done because they don't have the clout or the name recognition or anything else. But if you get to their level, you can get everything done that you need to get done. Or at least,
be a part of it.
Yeah. At least make enough noise to where somebody goes, oh shit, he's right. Yes. Let's sit down and talk to this guy and figure out what needs to happen.
How do you go about getting in the state representative? So you have this kind of like bottom point, and you come back from that, you kind of compose yourself, and you're like, I'm getting into politics? Or what was kind of like the time gap between those?
So one of the problems that I used to have when I first got home from Iraq and Afghanistan was I drank a lot. Like I kept the Jameson distillery in business. My wife can confirm that. There was nothing for her to come home and there'd be like 18 Jameson bottles on the kitchen counter that I was feeding into the liquor cabinet because me and the boys would just tear a bottle up in a day if you left us to our own devices. I kind of quit drinking. She put a nix on that right after we got married. She's like,
Probably
look,
not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was like, look, you're drinking way too much. You need to, you need to calm this train down or I'm leaving. And I'm like, nah, she's not going to leave. Well, she did.
Yeah.
I mean, she packed her stuff up in the middle of the night. She was like, hey, my dad will be here first thing tomorrow morning. I'm out. And I'm like, what? And so that was kind of a kick in the ass that I really needed to sit there and think about it. And I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah, she's not fucking around.
Yeah, I just lost her. And, I got one kid that lives in Arizona with her mom who we could do a whole podcast on shit show Craigslist crap. But, and then I've got another little girl who's looking up to me at this point in time, my oldest daughter. And she's like, Dad, what happened? Dad was an idiot. Let's just put it that way. So one night, one of my buddies calls me and he goes, hey, man, let's go out for a couple drinks. So I tell Casey, hey, I'm going to go out. We're only going to have a couple drinks, smoke a couple cigars, where he wants to talk to me about something. And I came home and I looked her straight in the face. And I never will forget what she said to me. I was like, I'm running for state representative. What? And I was like, yeah, today is Monday. Wednesday, I leave to go to Indianapolis and file my paperwork. You can either get behind this or I'm still going to do it, because I was dead. I had my mind made up that I could make a difference.
Yeah.
I remember it was a long drive to Indianapolis. It was the worst drive I've ever had up there.
What was the conversation at the bar, first of all?
Yeah, you can.
The conversation was, hey, man, this is your shot to help veterans on a larger scale level. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And then we had one hole in our party that nobody wanted to fill. And I was like, okay, and then I kind of stopped. And as the night progressed and we started talking about it, I'm like, look, you can either get in on a city level, you can get in on a county level, or you can get in on a state level to where you help write all the legislation that needs to happen. Mm-hmm. So when I realized that, what the state rep does, everything else, I went to my party chair and I said, hey, I want to put my name in the hat for this. And he goes, well, you have to caucus. And I'm like, what's my next step? You got to drive to Indy and go file your paperwork. So I made a 3.5-hour drive, bored out of my mind, was so scared to death, get there, see the state house. They take me on a tour. They're talking to me about what the state representatives do. They take me out to the floor and they show me everything. And I'm like, I could really do this. Mm-hmm. And so I filed my paperwork that day and I came home. We got home Wednesday night. Saturday, I got dressed in a suit and tie, went and caucused. Well, when I caucused, I was going against a guy who was, he was liked in politics. He was a newfound, I can't really say he was a newfound, but he was newer in our party. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it came down to me and him. And he said some things, I said some things. Ultimately, what I said, I guess, resonated more with the people that were voting to put me in that spot.
Should have just fist fought him.
No, he's a local pastor. He's a real good guy.
Bad press.
Yeah. So, I remember sitting there. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I called my wife, and I was like, I'm so scared because we don't have the vote back yet. And I remember our party chair, Wayne Park, at that point in time, walked up there, and he goes, Greg, would you like to come say a few words? You're our nominee for this position. And I was like, and I'm still on the phone with my wife. I'm like, oh shit, I really did this. Yeah. So I hang up with her. I go up there and give my acceptance speech.
Hi, I'm Greg. I'm really scared.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But, I do that. And then I go out to the mall to go see her. And between the time that I left where we were at to the time that I was at the mall, every news network had called me asking for an interview. And I'm like, oh, okay. So now it dawns on me. It's like, bro, you need to get your priorities in line like real quick. Why you're running, why you're running, what you plan on doing within your first year, because technically the way that state representatives work in Indiana, you only get a year. So,
because you got to spend your second year campaigning.
Yeah, your whole second year is pretty much a campaign trying to make sure that you get that seat back. And I already had all my comprehensive plan laid out for the first year, and then my buddy calls me that night. He was like, "Hey man, we need to get you signs." And I was like, "Okay." So I start looking at signs, and I was like, "All right, campaign signs."
Yeah.
Then
You still have any?
Yeah, I've still got a bunch.
Oh, you got to bring us one, man. We're
So-
starting a wall.
Okay.
We had Drayson Williams in here.
Ultimately, at the end of it, when I went to put them in the cart, I realized exactly how much that piece cost.
A lot.
And I was like, oh, and fortunately, my wife is an angel because she was like, take some money out of our savings and, do this
Wow,
and
that's
do
a
that.
good woman.
So, and I can tell you this right now, I say that, but there was a big piece of her behind that was like, I don't want to be a politician's wife. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to this benefit. I don't want to go to that benefit. Fortunate, about midway through the campaign cycle, she started coming around because my treasurer and her are real good friends. So it was like, if I ever had to go to a benefit, I never
just have a
said it.
friend.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
never said anything to my wife about it. I always went to my treasurer and I'm like, Jennifer, Casey needs to be here because there's going to be press. There's going to be this,
Yeah.
she needs to be there. And then automatically, I see her getting ready and I'm like, where are you going? I'm going with you. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Now I got a DD.
That's awesome that she supported you in all this, though. I mean,
But yeah,
were you still working at the manufacturing plant?
No,
Or
I
did you-
wasn't.
You just drive it?
At that point in time, I was I was solely relying on her income and my income as a disabled combat vet.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the other stuff that I was doing to bring in money at that point in time. And luckily, we've got a big group of friends that, like, I was in the campaign cycle for 180 something days because we caucused in midway through the election so I didn't have to primary against anybody. I just went straight to the general ballot.
Okay.
So we were in it for 180 days, and in 180 days, we raised, I think it was just shy of about 20 grand.
Wow.
So we had a killer fundraiser. I came home. I won't forget that conversation either. I looked at her and I was like, I want to rent the LST. And she was like, the warship? And I was like, the whole damn thing. I was like, I'm going to pull this off. We're going to have my fundraiser on the deck of the LST. And me and my firefighter buddies, after we're done, are going to smoke a cigar on it, and then we're going to go home. So we had that benefit, raised a ton of money. I saw the polls the next day. Everything was looking great. And I told her, I was like, this is a possibility that I'm moving to Indianapolis and I'm moving without you. Ooh. That was kind of the breaking point in the cycle, was because I would have had to go to Indianapolis Monday through Friday and stay in a hotel or stay in an apartment for 2 years without my wife. Mm-hmm. And I say that
guys didn't just think about just moving there together for 2 years.
She's always had a job to where she couldn't move. And I love my wife to death, and I'll say this on the internet, so I see all my fire department buddies are watching. If I turn up dead, she did it. But my wife, if you take her out of the city of Evansville, she can't drive.
Oh.
So
well, no one in Evansville can drive.
Yeah,
so that,
I mean,
it's not
it's
that surprising,
perfect.
right? Yeah.
But we talked about, if I had to be up there on the weekend, if I won and I had to be up there on the weekend, her taking a long weekend, coming up, staying at the apartment with me, and then turning around, coming back. And then it was kind of like election night. It was kind of crazy because, I mean, you're on the ballot with Trump and Biden. Like, when you look at the general ballot for the state of Indiana, it's like you got Trump and all these big hitters, and then your name like this big, and it's like, Well, when I early voted, so I got to see the ballot, and it was kind of surreal because I had 22 beside my name. Well, 22's always been my number. Every sport I played, I always had 22. Different indigenous numbers that I needed throughout my entire career always was 22. And I was like, I got a really good shot. And I was praying that day, and I was like, we're good. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We get to the election night. We're sitting there, and they dropped the first wave of ballots, and that was it. So, like, literally, I had no clue what was going on, because when I looked at the screen, it said Ryan Hatfield had like 40% of the vote or something, or I think it was like 60% of the vote. Greg Peete, 40% of the vote. And when we looked at the numbers, it was like he had me like 1,800 to like 200 votes.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, are we done? Are we over?
Yeah.
Do I need to call him? Do I need to be like, hey, man, congratulations? And everybody's like, no. The way that everything's happened throughout the entire United States, you're not going to know.
Yeah.
So I
It'll take a
remember,
little while.
yeah, I remember going home and I was just crushed. I was like, okay, well now I got time to start working on the foundation. So I put all my energy into that, which I'm pretty sure my wife was probably happy with that because I literally switched from one project to another project and stayed off the
Change
grid.
gears. Yeah.
And it was late Wednesday night. I got a phone call from the state, and they're like, "Man, it's not looking good." I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Your race, what they do is they can predict it. Like they can actually just go ahead and predict it out and automatically call the winner without the winner actually being declared because they don't have the numbers 100%. They just have a prediction on the numbers." And I was like, "Okay." I said, "Well, I keep seeing waves. It fluctuates." And they're like, "Yeah, but I'm here to tell you tomorrow morning when the last wave of ballots come out, you're done. You need to prep for that." And I was like, "Okay." So I remember going to bed that night and I told her, and I was like, "You know what?" I woke up next morning, nah, there's no way. You guys are wrong. You've been wrong every step of the way with this campaign. Let me ride this thing till the wheels fall off.
Right.
And then it was probably 4:30 in the afternoon. They dropped the last wave of ballots because, going into Tuesday night after the election, we still had 70-something thousand ballots that were supposed to be counted just in Vandenberg County. So these guys are working massive overtime trying to count all these ballots. And it was about 4:30. I had an inkling, and I checked the unofficial results, and I was just down and out. There was no way I was coming back from that deficit. So I call Ryan. I congratulate him. We ran the one thing I could say about Ryan Hatfield is we ran a great campaign. Yeah. Neither of us bashed on each other. We both knew what our strong suits were. The problem of it was, I'm a no name in that community. Right. And, his dad is a lawyer. Ryan's a lawyer, very upstanding, both of them very upstanding citizens in the community. And he was handpicked by his party,
right,
to replace,
to
replace the incumbent when she walked out or when she decided to retire. And I wish him all the best of luck. We still talk, we're still real cordial with each other. I won't say anything bad about him. Yeah. But then it kind of hit me. It was like, okay, I'm done. So we talked on the phone for about 30 minutes about a few different things. I released a video. He released a video. Everybody, you get the text messages. "Man, I'm so sorry. You ran a great campaign." And I'm like, "Oh, you think I ran a great campaign? Hang on to your bootstraps because we're getting ready to do something even bigger." So it was November. I kind of leaked it that we were going to start with Battleground 22. And I was like, this is kind of what we're looking at doing. And everybody's like, "You're crazy."
Why'd you come up with the name?
So it's kind of weird. We wanted something that incorporated veterans and first responders because we take care of both. And if you look at it, people think that it has a political meaning because I ran for politics, because the battleground states are who decides who the president is. Okay. It's not that because I worked in law enforcement. I've been a firefighter for many years. Every day is a battle. Every time that you step out on that call, you never know what you're getting. My best friend in the entire world, Jake Picket, ultimately was killed by a guy. And, in court, the guy said, "I didn't want to get bit by the dog and I didn't want to go back to jail." Well, my wife sat there and watched me because I had a baseball bat in one hand and a bag in the other hand. And I wanted to drive up there and hit the dude in the face with a bat until he just couldn't breathe anymore.
Yeah. Naturally.
I absolutely lost my mind. Jake was killed March 3rd of 2018. And, so it kind of goes back to the simple ways of you never know exactly what you're going to get into. So every day is a battle. Veterans, we deal with PTSD, we deal with traumatic brain injury. It's a battle for us to just fight our demons to get out of bed, and you might sit down and talk to a veteran and you might be like, "Dude, he is the coolest person ever." They might be in that minute because they're trying to figure out to make you not feel uncomfortable. But then at the end of it, when they get home, it's like, shit, I just want to be left alone. So we came up with Battleground because I had like 30 other names. But that was one of the first original 5 that I picked. Okay. And I kept coming up with new names and coming up with new names. And then I kind of did a focus group. I called a bunch of my veteran buddies, and I was like, "Hey, man, if somebody was to start a non-for-profit and they called it Battleground 22 Foundation.
Just out of nowhere, if someone worked.
What do you think?" And all my buddies were like, "Dude, we love that name." And I'm like, "Okay." Yeah. So I said something to Casey about it, and I was like, "Battleground 22." And she was like, okay. So then I called Eric from CJ3 Foundation. I was like, what do you think about Battleground 22? He's like, that would make a killer logo. I was like, all right, it's done. So, I mean, as soon as he said that, I was actually on shift at the fire department filling in for one of the full-time guys. And I remember having a conversation with Crystal Elliott, a real good friend of mine. She's actually a captain of ours, too. And she's part of our peer support team, not only for the fire department, but for Battleground. And she was like, hey, what are you doing? Because I had all this paperwork pulled up on the screen. And I was like, dink, pay. And it hit the printer, and she looked at it, and she goes, oh, you're incorporated. I was like, yeah. Well, I mean, this is the first step. So I went ahead and did all my stuff from the state, and then we focused on the 501c3 piece of it, which that by itself, I'm here to tell you, anybody listening, if you're thinking about starting a 501c3,
What is that?
It's actually a non-for-profit.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, the 501c3 designator gives you tax exempt, and it gives you the non-for-profit status, so you can get money from outside entities, and to include federal government. So if you're ever thinking about starting one, take all your hopes and dreams and put it down on a piece of paper, send your money in, and forget about it until the day that you open the mailbox and you've got a letter from the IRS saying, congratulations, because it will haunt your nightmares from start to finish. We're at 92 days right now. That we've been waiting on the IRS, and the IRS calls us this morning and said, hey, by the way, we lost your paperwork.
Oh, good.
It's like, how do you lose paperwork that's submitted online?
Yeah.
Did somebody hack your system? I mean, seriously, let's talk about this for a minute.
Wait.
Lost it.
Yeah, it's just gone. And
Did you lose my tax returns?
Yeah.
No, we've got those.
Yeah,
in fact.
right.
The money I owe, you got
Right,
that?
yeah.
All right.
So it's weird how that works, huh?
Yeah, so she goes, we're going to treat it like a new application. So you're possibly looking towards the end of the year. And I'm like, you're smoking crack.
Yeah.
I was like, you guys are working from home, first off. So don't get me wrong. I worked from home during COVID. It was great. Didn't have to put on pants. Didn't have to answer to anybody. Every once in a while, put on a nice shirt, sit there, Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
What they don't see is,
Don't pull an Anthony Weiner.
Yeah. Yeah. What they don't see is from here down, you got nothing on.
You're comfortable.
Yeah. Taking Zoom calls before in
Business
bed.
casual.
Yeah. Zoom, great. I love Zoom because you can put the little filters behind you and make it look like you're anywhere.
Doing a judge video call
Yeah.
as a cat.
The cat.
Have you seen that, Chase?
Yes,
It's
it's very
fantastic.
wholesome. Very.
But yeah, laying in bed and it's.
I am not
it
a
looks-
cat.
We know.
You want to cancel this call?
I think it's a filter. I am not a cat.
I love the reassurance he has to give the whole call.
Well,
That's exactly what a cat would say.
it's like that video. I saw it and I was like, that's kind of funny. And then my wife has a completely opposite sense of humor than me.
Yeah.
She fell out of the chair laughing. And then she's sending it to me and everybody. And I'm like, we've already seen this.
Yeah.
But then when I send her stuff, she's like, I'm scared to hit play. And it's like, you should be.
You should be.
I promise you should be.
Yeah. A guy gets hit in the face with a helicopter propeller.
Yes. That's the reason why I'm glad I have an outlet like Cassie, because,
Yeah.
I mean, the day that she re-upped, I was sending her text messages back and forth. She wouldn't tell me what she was doing, so I sent her something on Facebook. And I didn't hear from her the rest of the day. And then that night, she's like, oh, by the way, I did something big. And I'm like, you're pregnant?
Yeah.
That's the first thing, when a girl tells me I did something big, and it's like, you're pregnant? You bought a house, you shot somebody, killed your ex, what?
Yeah.
And she's like, I re-upped for my final time. And I was like, that is awesome. Congratulations. So we put that out on the Battleground, our 22 website. That's another thing that we do is we try to lift veterans up. I mean, Cassie's been a real good friend of mine for years. She's seen me at my absolute lowest. And, unfortunately, I will say this because I know she's probably watching and everybody else is. Cassie has served me one too many beers in my entire life. But she's also been the same one, too, that she's like, give me your keys. Why? This person's taking you home. Cool. I live all the way on the other side of town. How am I getting in my truck tomorrow? So, yeah, she used to be a bartender at a local bar.
Oh,
and
okay.
That's how we met. And then when we realized that we were both vets, and it was just an instant connection. So
Very cool.
Yeah, we kept her on. She's
Fun fact: she's the only guest to ever show up eating chicken wings.
sounds exactly like her. All about the gains. All about the gains. So, and honestly, to tell you the truth, you told me earlier I'm a big boy. I'm
Well,
here
you
to
look like a normal dude, and then
Yeah.
you got up, and I was like, God damn, you're big.
I lowered the chair a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you right now, piss that little firecracker off.
Oh, yeah.
That's like shoving a stick of dynamite in a bobcat and just being like,
Yeah.
poke, 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 poke. You know, yeah, I love her to death, but I've seen her absolutely just go berserk, and I'm like, dude, calm down, you know?
Dude, calm down.
So, but yeah, I mean, we're basically the whole reason why we did it was we're trying to bring awareness for veterans and first responders.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and we had to bridge that gap to figure out how we could integrate the first responders to it too. And I mean, we're glad that we've got a representative from a fire department that is peer support trained that can help firefighters regardless of where it's at. I mean, she's made herself available to be able to help these guys. I've got some Evansville Police Department guys that have stepped up and said, "Hey, you get a guy or girl that's in uniform that has a bad call or something like that, and they just need somebody to vent to. Give them my phone number. You know, let's go this way."
Yeah.
We got some peer support teams all over the United States that have stepped up, and they're like, "Yeah, you know, we're good. We'll help out." And it's kind of awesome to watch your idea that you have that you know, there's days where you lie awake and you're like, is this going to work? And then all of a sudden, boom, it turns into this big thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, you keep driving forward, but then in the back of your mind, you've got the IRS back here going, I still got your paperwork. And it's like, how do we raise money?
Will they be able to, like, so for now you're not tax exempt, but
No.
when they push that through, will you be able to, like, back file, like, hey, I've been doing this for fucking 9 months now because you fucks lost my electronic paperwork?
Yes and no. So what the IRS told me and what our lawyers and our accountants told me are two totally different things. And unfortunately, I
might listen to the
Yeah.
IRS.
Well, unfortunately, I trust fortunately, I trust my lawyer and my accountant more
Yeah.
than I trust the IRS right now.
I don't blame you for that. It
So-
just- yeah.
They told me that, you know, we can go ahead and start taking donations now. And then once we get to a certain point and they give us that paperwork, we can send that paperwork to them so that way they can start getting the tax write-offs.
Okay.
Like right now, we're in the middle of talks with 3 or 4 different people about getting some houses donated. You know, and you're talking $40,000, $50,000, $60,000,
Right.
you know, of a huge tax write-off for them. I've kind of put the brakes on that one because I don't want those guys being like, hey, you know, we need this paperwork at the end of the year, and then the IRS going,
Right.
oh, well, you know, we lost everybody's
Da-da-da-da.
paperwork, so we're still April
Yeah.
5th of 2020 that we're still working on.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we're looking at bringing a lot of cool things to the table. One thing that I can say, finally, I've had to be so tight-lipped about it, and my wife doesn't even know about it. We sent all of our paperwork forward today to Montana, Idaho, Iowa, Wyoming, somewhere else out on the West Coast, and we're now in the running as soon as the IRS paperwork comes through. Battleground 22 will be able to offer veterans and first responders hunts. So,
Oh, man,
that's
that's
awesome.
super
yeah,
cool.
I've been on a few.
Yeah.
My wife hates it. Our back bedroom, when you walk in where my office is at, it's just deer heads everywhere.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and
My dogs hate them.
well,
Like, I want to chew on them.
I have to give credit to my wife real quick. So this is how cool she actually is. When you talked about her supporting me, we got married October 3rd of 2015. October 3rd of 2016, I was in the mountains of Wyoming chasing elk on our 1-year wedding anniversary. I left 4 days prior to our 1-year wedding anniversary and went out for a hunt, and I was gone for 2 weeks.
That's real love,
And-
man.
Well,
Yeah.
listen, babe, I can't control when the season is.
No,
okay?
I mean,
I'll FaceTime you.
it was literally a buddy of mine called me at the last minute. He goes, I got an antelope tag and possibly more tags for you. You're a disabled combat vet. Come on. And I'm like, how do I pitch this to my wife? And I was explaining it to her, and she was like, fine, just go. We'll do something when you get back. Now, I say that, but anybody that's married knows that the one that you really have to worry about is your mother-in-law.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there was some tension there about
Yeah.
why I was chasing animals on our 1 year wedding anniversary instead of being at home with my wife. And
honestly, does it matter though? Like, it's not like you missed the birth of your child or was late to your wedding or something. You know what I mean? Like,
and I always joked with her about that too, because when we got married October 3rd, and that's the opening day of deer season in Indiana. And I was like, so we got married at New Harmony. If you've ever been out there, we got married at the granary.
Okay.
So we had a house a little bit away from there where all the guys were getting ready, and my best friend Bobby Farmer
sounds like an Indiana name.
No, he's actually from Texas. He's retired.
Oh, really?
Bobby he's a retired special forces guy.
Old man oil fields boy.
I mean, he's a beast. Yeah. But Bobby walks out on the back porch while I'm standing out there smoking, and he goes, "There's a deer." And I'm like, I have no gun, no bow, no nothing. And then by the time that we had made a game plan on how to try to figure out to go kill this doe that's out in the field, our wedding planner is like all up in me. Yeah. Oh, you gotta go. We got first look pictures. And I'm texting Casey, and I'm like, I really what time do we need to be there? And she goes, we still got like 2 hours.
Oh, bet.
And
pulls
I'm
a
like,
knife, gets down on the ground.
I was like, well, let's go kill this thing. And she was so adamant that I had to go like right now.
Yeah.
Our wedding planner was. And, but I mean, that's the thing about my wife. She supports anything that I do. She's always been there for me. She's the first one that, I see her and one of the guys on the department was like, hey, hit him. She's that type of person, but she's also that same type of person though too. Her dad's a combat veteran. Okay. So her dad's a Purple Heart Vietnam vet, so she's had to live with that.
Vietnam, that's not an easy one.
Well, and I make fun of her dad all the time, vet to vet, because he was like, well, you know how I got my Purple Heart? And I was like, what? And he goes, I was looking for a landmine. And I was like, yeah, and your dumbass found it. He did. He stepped on it. I mean, fortunate he's not really, really messed up. I mean, he's got some residual effects that we see, and like PTSD and traumatic brain injury and, injuries like that. But I mean, it always could have been a lot worse. It could have been a ton worse. Cool. So she's dealt with that all of her life. And then she gets with this crazy, this crazy Indiana transplant with me. And she's just like, I've got to give her credit. I mean, she takes the brunt of a lot of stuff, but she just keeps on going.
Sounds pretty cool, man. Not a lot of girls be there for all that.
Well, and, her nickname throughout the CJ3 Foundation and Josephine's Canine Services, where we do all of our business at and everything, is Snooki, because she is a huge Snooki fan.
Really?
But, I mean, my wife is literally like that tall, and it's just one of those deals where Snooki reminds me so much of my wife, and that was her idol, I guess, growing up. So I'm just like, funny. Shit, here we go.
Exactly half as tall as you.
Yeah. And everybody's like, that's weird. And I'm like, yeah, even when she puts on heels, she's only about right here, so we're good.
Guys, we're about halfway through. If you haven't already and it's your first time here, please go ahead and like our podcast page. We do live podcasts every single week on Wednesdays at 6 o'clock. We try to have a new guest every week. If we don't, me and Chase still show up in here to bullshit. Man, where can we go to? You said you got a website. Go ahead and give some plugs for all your stuff.
So we've got a Facebook as of right now. Mm-hmm. My website got leaked the other day. My wife was making fun of me. It's all in French, so we're having to go back through and change a whole bunch of stuff. So you web guys, I give you mad props, because things are really weird when it comes to all that
shit.
stuff. No,
yeah,
that's the reason why you pay somebody to do it,
right?
But
or have a Chase.
Yeah. Chase, you want to come back with me and finish ours up?
I got to finish shit on this show. I'm dropping the link to the Facebook page in the chat comments below for anybody that doesn't have it. It's also in the post as well, but I also want to link it again. So.
Yeah, it's just Battleground 22 Foundation on Facebook.
Okay.
We've also got an Instagram. Chase and we were talking about that earlier. It's really weird because guys like us that run multiple pages, you have to be very mindful of what you're doing, because
I just don't post anything at all.
Yeah. I post on our social media, so yeah. No,
I've almost gotten in some trouble because I'm like responding back to somebody's comment, and then it's like,
hey, fuck you.
Wait a minute, no, get off that one. Have to log in through 15 back doors. So our website will be coming soon. Right now on our website, though, it is battleground22.org.
Okay.
If you go to our website, it'll have our new logo. I do want to give a shout out. I don't know if they're paying or they're watching or not, but Flaming Turtle Designs out of Alba, Iowa.
Flaming Turtle Designs.
Yeah.
Wow, where
poor
did
turtles.
that name come from? Yeah.
I don't. Eric explained to me it's his sister, so she made some new logos for us.
Okay.
And they're absolutely incredible. I cannot wait for to see them on T-shirts and flags and everything
Oh
else.
yeah.
But
where are you gonna sell those to? Just a Facebook page, you think?
no, we've actually got a lady, Teresa at Imprints in Boonville, Indiana.
Okay.
So Teresa is working on all of our shirts right now. So we'll have shirts, hats, hoodies. My wife was like, "Hey, we need to do something, for this or for that." So we're actually coming out with some custom engraved cups with our logos, like the Yeti style cups. Those will be available as well too. My wife is sitting down with a couple other people, and they're working on like kind of a women's clothing line.
Okay.
Because our sense of humor and our
Right.
girlfriend and wife sense of humor are completely different.
Yeah.
They're not gonna. I created a shirt years and years ago, and it's just something to the extent of I shoot Arabic better than I speak it, and
It's a tough sell.
I'd rock it.
so it got put on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
And it's a famous quote by a guy by the name of Operator X, who he helps train military guys. And I wore that shirt one day because I got a new shirt because my old one was trashed, and my wife was like, "You're not wearing that outside." I was like, "Okay, bet. Watch this. I will."
Yeah.
We went to Walmart and I was wearing it, and I was like, "Who's gonna say what?"
Right.
It is, but I understand it. The culture that we're in today. It's not like it was 5 years ago to where you walk down the
fuck 'em.
street and bag tag somebody that you knew, and you don't get the cops called on you.
Yeah.
So we're being mindful about that, but they're going to release some women's clothing not too long, or hopefully in the near future. Our shirts and hats and everything should be coming up pretty soon. I met with her yesterday. She was showing me some different logo designs that she placed on some different merchandise, and
Hell yeah.
so we'll have a link on our website. Once the website goes live, you'll be able to, or the cool thing about it is you'll be able to click shop. It'll bring up everything. So say you want a bright neon yellow shirt. Well, that's one of the 26 colors that she has. So she can take our logos and put it on that neon yellow shirt.
Yeah.
And then when you pay for it, it goes directly to her. She prints the shirt off, bags it, puts a mailer, and sends it to you.
Yeah,
so,
that's awesome.
Great part about it for me, I carry no inventory.
Hands off.
Yeah. My board of directors doesn't have to worry about having 100 shirts in the bed of their
overhead.
truck as
Yeah.
we're driving down the
And
road.
having to
Say
push
that's-
to sell.
Yeah,
Yes.
we use Teespring. If you guys want some fucking dope ass TCP merch, head over to Teespring. It's the top of the page. For the exact same reason, so we don't have to have boxes of shit sitting around.
And it's just so much easier too because you literally can just or come up with a deal with them, and it's like, okay, we know what we pay per shirt.
Yep.
So then you know what your markup is, you know what you make, you know what
Exactly,
everything else
yeah.
is, and it's like at the end of the month you just sit back. You might be drinking coffee, and the mail comes. And it's like, oh, check,
nice.
here you go. Throw
Yeah.
that in there. That goes in the pot. So, but yeah, we're doing that. Another big thing that we're doing, another big thing that we're going to wind up doing with Battleground 22 is a really good friend of mine, Jennifer Bland, and I came up last year with the idea that we wanted to do something to pay tribute to not only law enforcement and first responders, but veterans that they're no longer with us. I reached out to a lot of my veteran buddies who are no longer with us and talked to their families to make sure I could use their names, and we created a board. And we're keeping tabs on veterans that were from like the Evansville or Owensboro area, just the surrounding counties. And we created what we call the Ride for the Fallen. So the dates still are not stuck yet, but we're doing a 100-mile motorcycle ride. So basically last year, the way the plan was when you came in for registration, we would have a cop car, a fire truck, had some military vehicles that were donated to us for the day, an ambulance. And next to each vehicle, of course, they would have the blackouts and the memorandum flags on them, but then they would also have a board with names of local vets or local first responders that are no longer with us, whether they were killed in action or something happened to them along the way. And we were going to pay tribute to them. And what really sparked this for me was Jen Picket, Jake's wife. I saw the way that she handled everything that happened with Jake, with Grace. You know, she created the Jake Picket Response Foundation. You know, if you see a hashtag on Facebook that says, like, I think it's Be Like Jake or Jake 626, you know, if you click on that, it usually takes you to their website. Great organization based out of Indiana as well too. I'm so proud of what Jen has done to carry on Jake's legacy. Jake and I worked together in Marion County, and we worked together at Hendricks County, and it was just one of those deals where he was that type of guy that he literally, you could walk up and be like, I can't afford to eat today, dude, because I didn't bring my wallet. Oh man, just get me back later, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, bro, I got blood all over my uniform. Here, take my next uniform shirt. You know, that's the kind of person that Jake always was, and I strive to be like that now. But we wanted to do something here in southern Indiana, so I reached out to Sheriff Nielsen with Boone County, and I was like, hey, will you talk to Jen for me? Will you make sure that it's all right for us to do something to pay tribute to Jake and to the other first responders that were killed? What a lot of people don't know about me is I grew up in a very small town in Indiana, in Oakland City. My grandparents ran Oakland City University for many years.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah, we actually lived here in Owensboro too. They pastored First General Baptist on Maple Street.
Wow.
So I lived here for a few years. But when we moved to Oakland City, I became real good friends with all the cops because they worked security for my grandparents at the university. And Mike Dino in 2000, I think it was 2000, was shot and killed by literally an idiot. I don't even want to say his name, but he's still in Terre Haute Penitentiary, and he keeps trying to get out on parole and all this and all that. And only thing I can tell you, man, is, you know, if you happen to get out, you know, before you die in prison, I promise you there's about 7,000 people that are looking for you. Yeah. You'll never be safe in this United States ever again. But, you know, Mike was shot and killed, and it was my first big police funeral that I had ever been to. I mean, they took up the whole entire college gymnasium. And, you know, you had cops from Idaho, California, you know, they all drove in to do that, or to be there for Mike's funeral. And that always resonated with me. And then when I got into law enforcement, I always stopped to think. I was like, you know, I don't want to be that guy. You know,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, at the end of the day, I want to go home. So I always did everything I had to do to go home. You know, but you got other people like Brianne Leith from Indianapolis. I happen to know her very well. You know, she was shot and killed going to a domestic disturbance. You know, and I hate to say this, but, you know, hers was politicized a bunch. You know, every time I turned on the TV, it almost felt like I needed to drink a whole entire bottle to get through the broadcast, because they're like, oh, Black Lives Matter. You know, and yes, she was an African-American female, and they're like, oh, well, you know, they would have hung everybody out to dry had that would have been flipped around. No, you know, at the end of the day, what you have to understand is, even guys like me that did time in uniform, we signed up for the job that we have.
Right.
You know, it's not because we wanted all the accolades and all the glory and everything. It was because that's what we wanted to do with our lives. We wanted to help people. You know, there's always this big stigma between fire departments, of career fire departments and volunteer fire departments. Well, I'm here to tell you right now, and I'm probably going to piss a lot of people off when I say this, I can introduce you to 3 young firefighters right now that just passed their Fire 1 and 2 for the state of Indiana, and I will put them up against full-time career guys. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, our department that I'm a part of right now, we make just as many runs as career guys in the city, as one of their houses. You know, and people look at us and they're like, "Oh, you're just volunteers." Cool. Well, we went through the same training.
Yeah.
You know, I have the same certs. Hell, I might have more certs than a couple of the full-time guys, or, you know, some of the career guys.
Yeah.
You know, but everybody looks at it, and there's always that big disconnect. You know, oh, well, he's a volunteer. You know, I can introduce you to, actually, you said you lived over near Rockport. I can introduce you to a lot of the Rockport guys. They're not, you know, if you really sit down and talk to them, they're not academy guys. They went through a class. It's what they wanted to do. They can only spare like 6 or 7 hours a month. So they're reserve cops. You know, I won't ever discredit them. That's great, you know.
What is a reserve cop? I've never even heard of that.
So in the state of Indiana, you go through a class, and then you go through a very long probationary period. But they're the cops that don't get paid. So if you see like some of these small towns where they have like 50 cops in a town, like directing traffic for a parade, or you might be used to seeing the same 3 people, your entire career on that department, but then all of a sudden you have like 6 new people. But if you're like me and you pay attention to the county budgets and everything, you realize those guys aren't getting paid. They do the same jobs that full-time paid guys do and don't get paid for it.
Wow.
So at the end of the day, I mean, I love this argument with people, especially when they tell me that, I've gotten into this argument quite a bit, that I'm not a real firefighter because I'm a volunteer.
That's just silly.
Yeah. I'm like, cool. So all my years of career, or all my years of experience, but yet you have this guy that just got hired on with the city who's only had 6 months experience. You're going to tell me his life matters more than mine?
Yeah.
But usually 9 times out of 10, those are the people that are standing on the street corner screaming Black Lives Matter. And I'm like, cool. So would you be saying the same thing if me and you were ultimately in an interview together? You had more experience, but I'm an African American. I don't get the job. Where are all the people at standing out there because a white guy got hired over a black guy?
Yeah.
It's just, there's a big road that you can go down. And we wanted to stop that stigma with Barry. And that's the reason why, that's part of the reason why we started Battleground 22, because everybody that has signed a page or assigned a blank check to include up to their life, your life matters. That's the reason why it says continuously on our website and on our Facebook page, we service combat veterans and first responders from all walks of life. I don't care. You can bring me a purple people eater, and if they've passed if they've served in the United States military, or even if they served in the Peru military, we're going to try to take care of them as much as we can.
Yeah.
There might be some disconnect because we might not be able to get them the same benefits, but
right.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Nobody should ever be discredited. And, unfortunately with the current climate that we have, there's so much stuff going around Facebook that, this person who will not be whose name will not be mentioned ever by me, but she said no, yeah, pretty much. She said that the VA system is veterans welfare. It can't be 100% confirmed, but I'm here to tell you, any day of the week that you want to sit down and have a conversation with me about VA or about veterans welfare, we can. Yeah. Because that's not. I can introduce you to 3 or 4 guys that are. One of a real good friend of mine is a quadriplegic. He had his arms reattached. He's got a great quality of life. He races cars. He's got a service dog. I mean, he is an absolute badass.
Yeah, living his fucking life, man. That's awesome.
Got another buddy of ours that lives down in Texas that's a double amputee. I think it's right above the knee. He's got fake legs. Scares the crap out of me every time we stay in the same hotel because he'll go float in the pool and leave his legs sitting over there.
Oh, shit.
Like, whatever, dude. But I mean, he's the same one that, he still gets together with his special forces buddy and jumps out of airplanes.
That's what's up.
I'm like, yeah, travels all over the world by himself. Just like, it is what it is. You look at Kyle Carpenter. Kyle took off and climbed, I think it was Mount Kilimanjaro with a big group of people. He's a Medal of Honor winner. And everybody sees his face everywhere. And then he decided, oh, well, I'm done doing all this stuff. I want to go back to school. So he's doing that. For somebody to say that the VA system is veterans welfare,
it's ignorant.
Yeah, it's massively ignorant. But if you look at the way that the care that we get from the VA, it really is. I mean, you got illegal immigrants that are getting better quality of care than what we are.
Yeah.
But in the same retrospect, we won't go too far on a tangent when it comes into politics, but, sorry, I saw a comment and I was like, what's Crystal talking about? And then I realized, but the other piece of that is though, too, you got all these people that are coming in the country illegally and they qualify for all these programs, but yet we have to fight,
get a lawyer.
Yeah, we have to get a lawyer. We have to pay these people. We have to go to 50 million appointments just to be able to get service connected. And everybody, there's always that stigma. Everybody chases that 100% because then the VA really can't mess with you. You make X, Y, Z. Your kids go to school for free. You know, you get free taxes. You get this, you get that. You know, I'm here to tell you right now that with revamping the VA system and with this new current administration, get off your ass. Don't bring in another civilian. Bring in a veteran.
Yeah.
You know, this
Guy like you, who cares?
well, I mean, not even that, but you gotta think, and you know, I'll just go ahead and address it. I'm a Republican, like through and through. I vote Republican. I was on the Republican ballot. You had staunch Republicans like Colin Powell, General Obertreo, all those guys that jumped on the Joe Biden bandwagon because they were tired of the way that Trump spoke. So Biden's grand scheme of things, when you have two powerful men like that have ties with the United States government, you want to put a civilian who's never done anything or a day of military service in as the overall big swinging dick of the VA. Take one of these two guys and let them revamp the VA system. Give them a budget, quit messing with them, let it figure it out.
Yeah.
Because I promise you, at that point in time, those guys know what we're going through, so they're going to say, hey, this 100% category, it should be across the board.
Yeah.
You know, you shouldn't have to
Absolutely.
fight. You shouldn't have to fight and fight and fight. I mean, you know, there's people out there that are 30%. They only make like a couple $100 a month. You know, they don't want to fight the bureaucratic nightmare that it takes to go from 30% to 100. And they might not ever get it.
Right.
You know, since me and my wife have been together, I've filed 9 claims. I've been denied 8 out of the 9 times. This last time, they're like, oh, we overlooked something in your record, so we're going to bump you up 10%. And it's like, cool. But the VA math, what a lot of people don't understand with the VA math, I was at 80. I was at 80% service-connected disability. I got 60% not too long ago with my new rating. 60. That equals 90 with the VA system.
What?
Yep. So it comes out to where I had
Yeah.
I had
Sounds like government math.
yeah, I had 80% overall, or I had 80% overall, and then you turn around and you add on the 60, and when they do their little VA calculation, government BS, you put it together and it comes out to like 92.75. Anything under 95 rolls back to the nearest round number. So we're at 90. So technically, for me to get to 100, I would have to come out the gate swinging with like another 50, and I think like 2 10s to be able to hit that 5% mark to be able to get 100%.
How the fuck did it get like this?
A lot of suits and pins.
A lot of people that aren't necessarily.
I can tell you one thing, and I apologize if I piss off any of your viewers or anybody
You don't have
that's
to apologize to
no.
anybody.
yeah,
Fuck them.
that's paying attention
Not
because I'm
this
on this podcast. It all comes down to, if you remember correctly, everybody wanted to change.
Yeah.
He was going to be the greatest thing ever. But then if you remember correctly, we got him in office. Guns and ammo started flying off the shelves because we're going to take your guns. We're going to limit your ammo. We're going to do that. Yeah, come on. Because I can speak for 90% of veterans. We're not going to go get your guns. You're going to have to bring in the blue helmets, and you're going to feed us a shit ton of targets that are going to be littered all over the streets. You know, this will be the purge. I mean, that's what they're not understanding.
It's such a far pipe dream, just especially in this country. But yeah, it's all just political bullshit that's used to get people to act a certain way, and it's very dishonest. And we've had a lot of conversations in this room about people who are in positions of authority that have no idea what they're doing, and they have that position. Not necessarily because of their competence, but because of a popularity contest. And they start to make serious decisions on how certain, which are all intents and purposes, corporations that are funded by the federal government, which are what all these branches are now in charge and have a completely different idea of how something should be ran as the person that was there a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And you do that so many times throughout the years, how can anything get done, right?
I mean, if you look at it, look at where we're at now. Since January till now, look at where we're at. Everything that Trump fought to get us. I mean, we were seeing gas prices. My wife and I went on vacation. I got gas for $1.10.
Yeah, it's pretty cheap.
I was like, woohoo, yeah, this is all. I had buddies of mine buying diesel for like $1.25.
Yeah.
Those guys are rejoicing. Farmers are booming. Everything else is booming, and then a pandemic hits. Oh, it's all Trump's fault.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. How the hell is it Trump's fault? Because we have a virus that came in from a third world country, or not even a third world country, but from another country. How is it the president's fault?
Yeah.
Because our country is so divided, and it happened during that change era.
Yeah.
But if you watch, or I try not to follow politics anymore.
It's toxic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you look at every executive order that has been signed and what he said prior to the election, that ruling by executive orders is dictatorship. If you look at everything that we're going through right now, we're back in the Obama era.
Yeah.
And he's trying to undo everything to get it back to there and then bring his agenda.
Yeah.
So one thing, Victoria Sparks is, I had the privilege of being on a campaign ballot with her. She's now in Congress. She's originally, I think, from the Ukraine. And we sat down and had a conversation, and she's serving in Congress for Indiana. And she goes, I know firsthand what socialism looks like. And she goes, that exactly is what the Dems are trying to do to us right now. And I was like, there's no way. And then I heard an interview from D.C. not too long ago about Senator Todd Young. And she told that story again. And I was like, holy shit, you're right. I was like, this is like watching an episode of The Simpsons when they're like, hey, this is going to happen. And 3 weeks later, it happens. I'm like, people ask me my political view from time to time. And I'm like, watch The Simpsons. No offense, Trey Parker has figured it. He was that stoned.
Yeah.
He has figured out what's getting ready to happen in the world before it happens.
I'm super curious. You said you're a Republican. You ran for office, and you're highly motivated, highly passionate, and you're connected with veterans. So I was curious what your view is as far as legalization of marijuana, whether medicinal for veterans or just recreational across the board.
So I'm going to stick with my same stance that I had during my campaign. I think that the state of Indiana, what they should do is Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, we're all in a Bible Belt, which we know that. Indiana, there's some policies that are ass backwards that need to be like brought up to the 20th century. I think that I was all for medicinal marijuana because, I mean, when you look at as a veteran, when you look at what's going on in Colorado, when you look at what's going on in Illinois, and you see that veterans are being prescribed medical marijuana during VA clinical trials, and it's curing, it's helping the thought process, it's helping calm this, it's helping calm that. They're getting restful sleep. They're being viable members of society. I mean, I don't have a problem with it at all.
Very
I
little
think
side
that-
effects,
And the other thing is they're doing a ton of studies on TBIs and therapeutic MDMA.
Yeah. Psilocybin
And
and stuff like
it's
that.
almost completely eliminating all symptoms of PTSD for vets.
Well, and it's like,
It's insane.
a real good friend of mine who's a sitting state senator, and I had the conversation about the barrier or the chamber, like the depth chamber that they used to use for, I think it was like polio or something like that, like way back in the day, like the iron lung chambers.
Right.
It's been proven. I mean, I've seen the studies. It's been proven to help veterans with TBI.
You're talking about just like a hyperbaric chamber?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you literally get in it and you do it and it slowly starts to calm that. Me, on the other hand, I'm sorry, you're not going to lock me in a metal tube. I've seen too many movies on the way here. I passed a log truck and I was like,
Oh, here we
shit,
go.
yeah, no. Swerving out even when when you can't pass. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, we're not having this movie play out again. So it's just my thought process. But, even like when you look at the conversations that we're having right now on the live feed, Michael, a real good friend of mine who is a Marine veteran down in Florida, he said, it's a better alternative to overprescribing or opioids.
Oh, it's way
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I have chronic back pain and I have fibromyalgia. You know what the VA prescribes me for my pain meds?
Vicodin?
No, not at all.
What?
I get ibuprofen.
Oh, damn. Oh.
My wife,
sense.
my wife gets so mad at me because we will go through a bottle of ibuprofen in a week. And
Dude,
everybody's
that's-
like, your kidneys are going to shut down. And I'm like,
What
and
option
all
do
that
you
hap-
have?
And
Yeah.
all that happens is instead of taking the ibuprofen that doesn't work 90% of the time, people are forced to go get fucking drugs from the street,
Exactly.
and that ends in homelessness. And then it's like it's a never-ending, perpetuating cycle because of the war on drugs.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous, man. Like I'm very much libertarian, and I want to see all drugs just decriminalized across the board.
Well,
but weed is just, there's absolutely no justifiable reason that it's still a Schedule 1 narcotic.
Well, with the medicinal marijuana piece of it, I could see that rolling out into the VA, because that's going to be, veterans. One good trial people with it, people with cancer, people with long term that are terminally ill.
And regardless of the legalization of it or not, I know a lot of veterans who turn to marijuana to help with this.
Oh yeah, I won't mention his name, but I got a buddy of mine that's what he does.
Right.
He's 100%.
Several.
Yeah, he's 100% permanent and total. He doesn't have to work.
Yeah.
He's got money coming in. His wife is very well off. I've hung out with him during the day before, and I get there and it's like, oh, dude, and he goes, "You want?" No,
I'm medicated.
I'm good.
Yeah.
But every couple hours he's just like, especially if I'm around him, he's like, "Hey, I'll be back in a few minutes."
Yeah.
It's like, all right, cool. He comes back, nicest guy ever.
Leveled out. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he's also the same one though too, that if we ever had a zombie apocalypse or something, that I'm going to be calling and being like, "Get over here right now."
Absolutely.
Yes, I promise you, if you take his medicine away from him, he's probably going to level a whole bunch of cities. So we're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that it should be. I mean, cancer trials, veterans, terminally ill. I think that really Indiana, Kentucky both need to step up to the plate and start looking at this.
I think it's not going to be much longer before we see just federal legalization across the board, regardless of state. We're like you said, we're in the Bible Belt. We'll be the last states to ever legalize the shit.
Well, it's like Jesse trains police and military working dogs, and the big piece of that is there's some departments that are coming through that are like, "Hey, we want this dog to hit on everything except for marijuana," and it's like, me being me, he tells me that, and I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
He goes, "Yeah, the dog will hit on all the odors, but we focus on all these, and he doesn't really get a really good look at marijuana," and it's like, okay, cool. And I'm staying,
time.
And then I started to think about it, and I'm like, why'd they do that? Oh, well, this dog is like 2 years old. It's a brand new dog to the department. At 6 months, if they say, "Ta-da, hey, guess what? Here you go."
Right.
We're good. But then the same thing about that is though too, and a lot of people have stepped up and they're like, well, they can't tax it, they can't do this, they can't do that. Bullshit. Colorado,
or Vegas.
Well,
or
the taxing thing is weird too, because
Yeah.
first of all, if you're going to make it a medicine, should you be taxing it?
No.
And in Kentucky, it's actually illegal to tax medicine, at least at the point of sale.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why the most recent medicinal marijuana bill actually didn't get through, was because it actually included a taxing system on medicinal marijuana that was illegal.
Quit with the medicinal. Just fucking make it legal.
Right.
And then you can tax it as a recreation, just like you do with fucking alcohol.
Yeah.
The whole thing's just fucking nonsense.
Yeah, we're in
and I'm not a
2020.
drug user at all besides
Yeah.
alcohol. But
Yeah.
But
I mean,
it's pretty frustrating for people who just need a little bit of relief, but they don't need Percocets and
Yes.
Vicodin and benzos. Like, they just need a couple hits of the good stuff.
yeah.
And guess what? They watch MASH for 10 hours and fall asleep, and they're good. That's
Well,
what they need.
It's like me. I'm highly allergic to codeine.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I can't take anything that's codeine based, nothing whatsoever. So they're like, oh, yeah, well, ibuprofen. And then I kind of stopped and I thought about it the other day. I'm like, exactly how long is it until my kidneys shut down?
Right.
And then what's the VA going to do? Tell my wife, I'm sorry, on behalf of a grateful nation, here's a flag, here's the urn with your husband's ashes.
Yeah.
And here's
The ashes are mainly just ibuprofen, but
here's a DIC check every month because he was doing, he was getting so much in disability, so we're going to give you death benefits, and it's just kind of like, what the,
It's
where's
stupid,
the real
man.
disconnect on this? And I mean, unfortunately, and that's the whole thing, the taxation of it. Look at what they figured out how to tax.
Yeah. Everything. They tax everything.
I mean, I went to pay my cell phone bill the other day. There's a miscellaneous like $5 tax from AT&T.
Yeah,
I'm like,
fee.
can somebody tell me what that is?
Yeah.
Oh, the government threw it in there. CenterPoint Energy, who used to be Vectren, You know, I won't say anything bad about Centerpoint, but Vectren, you know, on the other hand, every year in Evansville, we played the Russian roulette game. Hey, are we going to be able to afford to turn our heat on because we have gas?
Yeah.
And it's like, you light that pilot light and it runs for a day. Ta-da, you got a $400 bill. And it's like, well, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But then they're like, oh, well, yeah, we want everybody to go to energy. And then the biggest damn lie that I've heard so far, and this one's the funniest one, since you guys got me on the subject, but solar power.
Yeah.
Okay, so did we not just see what just happened throughout the entire United States and throughout the entire world when this global warming, as people call it, just shifted through and shut down cities because they're on solar power? People are like, oh, we have no heat, we have no power, we have no this, we can't charge our cell phones, we can't play on the internet. Why? Because we have strictly solar power. We don't even have a battery backup. And the battery backup we do have still lasted for 30 minutes because it got so cold that these panels are cracking and are covered in ice and snow, and ta-da. But yet we have people in big government, exactly like what you said, that should not be there or have no clue what the hell is going on. We want to do away with planes. We want to do away with diesel. We want to do away with this. I'm sorry, but if you're telling me I have to have a solar-powered house and I want to get a Tesla because it's an electric car,
That still runs on electricity produced by a coal power plant.
and have you seen
That's the fucking.
I love
That's
it. I
the.
love that.
That's the best part of
have
the
you
electric
seen
vehicles.
Tesla's disclaimer on their vehicles? I have a buddy of mine that's got one. I was reading through the manual
They're
the other
super
day.
fucking cool. I'd get one in
yeah.
a heartbeat just
But-
to put it in ludicrous mode.
Yeah, but they cannot be charged off solar power.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me.
even the places around like California, they're like, oh yeah, these Tesla superchargers run off solar power. Bullshit.
Yeah.
You know,
Like I'm all for global warming is just 100% true. Like it just is what it is. But like I'm all for finding different energy sources and shit. But we've got to use our noggins as far as like nuclear power is sustainable and it doesn't use any natural resources at all. But because it has the word nuclear in it, everybody's like, oh fuck, you know,
it's going to turn into the next Chernobyl. No,
Right.
I'm sorry, it's probably not.
yeah.
You know,
And tell that to the fleets of nuclear submarines.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's.
Well, there's definitely a lot to be said about the energy crises that we face in this country, but it's tough right now because we're in this transitionary period where we want to be environmentally conscious. We don't want to be complete assholes and destroy everything, right? Like nobody's like fuck the planet. I hate the planet. No. Nobody's like
China's
that.
kind of doing that.
Yeah.
China's big on that.
Yeah, they just try not to think about it. But what I'm saying is that, most people, when they say, hey, would you rather destroy this forest or, find a way not to, let's not destroy the forest. Let's not destroy the land that we live on, right? We're in such a tough time because this old money that controls like all the petroleum reserves and all the large barreling plants, obviously they have an invested interest during however long they have invested into the oil industry to be paying attention to it. Now, that's not to say that they don't also have millions and billions of dollars into other versions of energy and renewable resources. The problem comes whenever they have to do this dance around federal government regulation to try and look like they're doing the thing that they say they're doing, but really they're just moving money and assets around in order to still get the subsidies that they would be getting for these other things. And it comes down to we can build a coal power plant in like 3 years. Nuclear power plant, maybe 15 years. It takes a lot longer to build some of these things and the investment. This country is built on selling, buying money, and investments, right? The investment in a solar power plant or a wind farm like that is not going to give you the kind of money that you're going to get from a power or a coal plant that's built in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like the other thing about it though too is some of the people that are whining, and I hate to say this, and it's not. I want to preface it with saying it's not a Republican versus Democrat thing. No. It's really not. It's an age and cultural gap is what it is. Yeah. Like I grew up watching Looney Tunes. Bugs Bunny ran up to Elmer Fudd, stuck his finger in the gun because he was rabbit hunting. The gun blew up. His face was charred. They laughed about it. they chased each other around for 40 years because it's still going on.
Yeah.
But yet you have people that are throwing a hissy fit about that. Well, my kids shouldn't be watching that. But then those are the same people that are standing in line when the new PS17 comes out and buying every
$1,000 phone.
Every graphic video game that's out there. The best meme that I saw was somebody said something about Pepe Le Pew, about how he got canceled. And some lady goes, I'm so glad that he got canceled because now my son can get back to playing Grand Theft Auto and setting a hooker on fire because he didn't want to have to pay her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where's the disconnect here? You know?
It's easy times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. And that's the cycle we're in right now.
Well, and it's like, I might be a little bit older than you guys, but when's the last time that you saw Smokey the Bear? Like we had this conversation.
Since I had cable.
Ago.
Since I had cable, and that's been a long time.
No, I mean, like they used to bring Smokey the Bear to school.
Yeah,
and then same way with Captain Planet. Captain Planet, he's a hero.
Never heard of that one.
Not
gonna lie to you.
It's the same thing.
But that was they didn't bring him to my school.
They
But
brought the Dare line to our school quite a bit.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not even doing that anymore.
Yeah,
but because we've fallen so far off the grid on offending people.
Yeah,
and that we're not teaching kids right from wrong. Like I love my daughter to death, but the way that my daughter talks to her mom, when she's around me, that doesn't fly. Like I'm that hammer fist. I'm like, oh, you said what? Come here real quick.
Yeah.
Let's have a sit down. And she'll leave crying. I didn't put my hands on her, but I'm like, okay, you want to tell me that you're 15,000 people on Instagram because you posted this selfie of duck lips.
Yeah.
These people mean the world to you. Cool. All right. So they mean the world to you. Then I'm not going to pay cell phone. Not going to take you here. Not going to take you there. Don't go to Casey and ask her to do either. Because, and let's see how well you fare.
Right.
Well, mom's not going to be on your side. Really? She's not? Well, the problem with her mom is she might be on her side for 2 or 3 days, or might be on the side for 2 or 3 days, and then she ultimately caves.
Yeah.
Because, you have to be friends with your kids. You are. But, I grew up in a General Baptist household. Mm-hmm. My grandfather was the first one that was like, okay, I got into a fight at school. I better have won. Because that was the only good feeling I was going to have the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then heaven forbid when I started driving, first time you miss curfew, hey, guess what? School's a mile and a half down the road. Start walking. And it's like, it's 13 degrees. Hey, who cares? Walk.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool. Well, I got football practice. No, you don't. Coach already knows you're coming home.
Yeah.
And it's like, what did I do to deserve this? And I grew up to be a person. Yeah. I grew up to be a person that I'm not 100% pure. I mean, I've been to jail. I've done some really dumb stuff. Called my wife at 7 o'clock in the morning while I was working with a whole bunch of cops. Hey, I'm in jail. But, by the way, I'm working security with these guys, and they took me to jail because I had a failure to appear. I need you to come get me. But at the same retrospect, I'm not the person that's going to run in and shoot up a mini mart.
Right.
Or do this or do that because my parents instilled what was right and wrong. And I might have strayed away from the Bible. I might have strayed away from my church. But at the ultimate end of it, I still know what's right from wrong.
Yeah, those are personal choices, not moral choices.
Yeah, and
that's
some of
the
these,
big difference.
Yeah, but some of these kids, they're running through Walmart and their moms are like, no, you're not going to get it. Well, that's fine. I'll just wait till dad gets home.
Yeah.
Really? I ever said that to my parents? It was like, okay, just wait till your dad gets home. And then you're trying to figure out, what end is actually up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I'm not a parent, so maybe you'll shine some light on this for me, but this was before my time even. But when I walk through public places and I see kids just going fucking crazy, I'm like, man, I really feel like I have never experienced them, but I miss the days when any adult in the store could jerk a knot in a kid's ass.
Oh.
Because it seems like, parents nowadays are like, don't touch my kid. It's my kid. It's my job to parent. I'm like, okay, but if your kid, there's a video of this young kid just has his arm out, just knocking everything off the shelf and nobody can do anything about it.
Yep.
I'm like, no, dude, fuck that. That kid needs to know that every adult in there will beat his ass for acting like that.
Well,
because if you don't, guess what? The cops are going to in the next 15 years.
Casey and I were somewhere. We were one of the road trips that we took, and I watched an older African American lady, which I mean, my whole dad's side is African American. I don't discriminate on color at all. But when you look at the stuff that my grandparents let me get away with from time to time that they didn't know about, and the stuff that my dad's grandparents let me get away with, there was no disconnect. Like, I was getting my ass whooped one way or another.
Yeah.
But I watched the grandma. She was walking with the mom, and there was a kid, and he kept doing something, and the mom just goes, "If you don't stop, I'm going to jerk a knot in your tail." That's exactly what it said. Of course, that piqued my interest. I'm sitting there around the corner. I was like, "Ooh, you can get your ass whooped, homie." And I finally, Casey came back. She goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Just stand here just for a second." And I hear this kid go, "I don't have to listen." Whoop! And you just see the grandma start walking outside. And I was like, oh, she cleared the aisle to where you couldn't see her anymore, and you just heard, "Say it again." I'm like, oh. We hurried up and checked out, and when we're checking out, like, she's dragging this kid by the arm.
Yeah.
Like he's doing the little dead weight thing.
Right.
She's picking him up by the back of the pants, picking him up, threw him in the car, and goes, "Say something else again."
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, there you go. She just went full-blown Medea on you, and you're gonna catch hands here in a minute.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We've made it to the point where it is absolutely frowned upon in this world to discipline your kids. And that might just be my upbringing. I grew up, I was a Southern kid that transplanted into Indiana. But my parents always brought those Southern values to the table. It was yes sir, no ma'am. You hold doors for people. You're in church. At that point in time, you were in church 3 or 4 days a week.
Wow.
I grew up as a preacher's
Church on Sunday was enough for me. Fuck.
Oh, I grew up as a preacher's grandkid. I won't say it sucked. I met some of the best people that I've ever met in my entire life there. Actually, the last pastor that I had, who's a missionary over in Saipan, we're still really good friends.
Really?
Like when my grandfather died, he kind of stepped in and filled that role, and he was like, "Hey, come hunt with me, come do this, come do that."
That's cool.
And we still talk. Like he moved to Saipan and took his bow, and he goes, I can't get a target." And he, we're talking on the phone one afternoon. And I was like, "Wait one, bud, I got you." Got on Bass Pro, and I was like, "Here you go, have this one," and shipped it to Saipan so he could still hunt,
That's awesome.
he could still practice.
Yeah.
But, if Steve was here today, he could tell you, he's seen it. Me being the little smart ass kid that I was,
of course,
running around the church thinking I was hot. Or you thinking I was just the biggest person there, and all of a sudden grandma will come flying out of the corner. "Come here."
Shit.
It's like, I'm not really scared of you, but we're gonna play this game. And then she grabs a hold of me and she's like, "You just wait till," It's like, no, we're leveled. We're done. But then it got to the point, as I got older, that my grandfather and I became really good friends, and he was showing me how to do things. And he was that father figure, because my dad was, I'm not scared to admit it, my dad was a piece of shit. Like he can go on somewhere. He contacted me a couple of years ago when I first got married and was like, "I'm so glad and proud of the man that you became." And I was like, "You're not dead yet."
Oh,
I was like, unfortunately, and I know that it might sound bad on my part, but I'm like, seriously,
it's
dude.
your choice. That's that's what I'm saying.
I get Facebook messages from people all the time. "Hey, I'm your half brother." What?
Yeah.
And then I go and do some research and come to find out my dad cheated on my mom. I've got a sister who's younger than me that I've never met. She is actually, no lie, she sent me a message not too long ago. She's the manager at a car wash in South Carolina.
South Carolina, damn.
Yep. And she was like, "Hey, I'm going to see our dad." And I was like, "I don't know whose dad you're talking about."
Our
because he was never there.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Well, he wants to have." No, we're good. Pay your child support, pay what you owe, like the 30 plus years of child support that you owe, and then we'll talk.
Yeah.
Because you really just trashed our whole entire family with this. It was, I want to say about 10 years ago. I was in the middle, it was right after I'd gotten back from boot camp. I was home for a little bit, and I was staying with my mom at the time when me and her were still getting along, and she goes, "Hey, your dad's coming to visit today." What? I was like, "Excuse me?" And she goes, "Yeah, he'll be here shortly. He's on a bus." And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm mentally preparing myself to meet this man who calls himself my father. Well, he called my mom and got smart with her and was like, well, I just don't know if I could do it. And I was like, oh, I mean, just be like all the other 30 plus birthdays, oh, I'm coming home. I'm coming. You never show up. I mean, I got better luck going to finding a feral cat and playing with it and, having somebody, a companion.
Yeah.
One thing led to another. And he wound up getting off the bus in like Nashville, Tennessee, claiming that he had PTSD and that he needed help. But this is the same man that, has 9 kids that he's never taken care of.
Yeah.
But he's got that one that is his favorite. And coincidentally, his first name is my middle name. And, he sent me messages on Facebook. Hey, man, you're my older brother. And I'm like, no, really, I'm not. Well, Dad has a picture of you, and he always talked about you. And I was like, cool. So what do you know about your dad? He goes, oh, well, he was away for years in the military. Said he was away for years in the military. Ask him about the robbery that he did in North Carolina where he shot at a security guard and went to prison for almost life and got paroled on good behavior.
Oh.
But not only that, about how he found God while he was there and became this minister. And the first day out, he knocked a chick up. And guess what? You're that prodigy. I was like, you were the reason why you were here is because he got paroled on good behavior and he knocked this girl up that he just met.
Damn.
And, well, I know my mom. You do? Yeah. Who's your mom? And he rattled off the name and I was like, you're wrong.
Oh.
I was like, you're 100% wrong because you just rattled off his new wife. Your mom was such and such that he pretty much met at a strip club. I was like, so don't have this conversation. Don't come at me stupid, because it really in our family.
You changed that man's whole life.
Really in our family, there's only 2 of us that belong, that are the oldest, and that's me and my sister. Even though we don't get along, that's still that disconnect that, unfortunately, she doesn't like me. I don't like her. That's just the way that brothers and sisters are.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still going to go bat for her if somebody comes at her, if somebody comes sideways.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, it all goes back to the whole cancel culture. It's gotten so bad just to do basic things, and you worry about getting in trouble. I mean, when we
everything.
Everything. When I was in school, we had the deacon at our church was our principal. Yeah, we didn't have to get permission slip signed to get paddled. We'd walk in the office and there's like, take your pick. Which one do you want? And it's like, it doesn't really matter because you're
number 3, my lord.
Yeah, you're gonna tear me up here, and I'm gonna go home and get tore up again. So,
I got a question from Michael here. He says, if X dollars of student debt is forgiven for non-veterans, should veterans be extended additional educational benefits of equal amounts of the forgiveness past their Montgomery and post 9/11 benefits when those are exhausted? And that's got a little bit of a long question, but how do you feel about that?
yes, if I'm reading this correctly.
Yeah, it sounds like it's kind of a two-parter there with the student debt forgiveness for non-veterans.
Hey,
because I know
Mike,
that's a
are you
hot
still
topic
there?
right now. The stream's a little bit behind, so we'd be waiting for a little bit for him to properly respond. But
And for some reason, whenever we're live, Facebook has this algorithm where it only shows you the comments it thinks you're going to want to see. So sometimes people comment and you never see it until after the stream's over.
But it's interesting because that's something on the horizon right now, student loan forgiveness, and something that we're not hearing as much about with this administration is obviously the issue in this country with how veterans are supported and what we can do. It seemed like the previous administration at first hammered on that tone a lot. Seemed like kind of petered out towards the end, but there's a lot of shit going on in the past 4 years. But
honestly, I will tell you this, and it might make it sound like it's, I'm campaigning or something like this. My take on the veteran thing is this: if you have a Montgomery GI Bill, there's no reason why you should have to sign federal paperwork for FAFSA or anything else. That school that you go to, it should be 100% covered. Mm-hmm. Because if you sign a blank check, to go into the military and you step off and deploy, then your school should be paid for. Because 9 times out of 10, unless you're an officer, because you've already got that degree, or you're a warrant officer, which basically is a magician. For people that don't know what warrant officers do, they have this title. They're really cool guys. They're subject matter experts. Good luck ever finding one whenever you need one. You might get some Apache fire from them from time to time when you're overseas. But the fact of the matter of it is that's what they want to look at. They want to look at, and say, especially this administration, they want to say, oh, well, student debt should be forgiven, within so much. Yeah. But there's already those programs in place. The programs are broken because, like, for me, I run a non-for-profit. My wife is on our non-for-profit paperwork. So she has student debt, which we've paid off. But my wife, if she would have made the way that they make it for the payoff on the civilian side of it, you have to have like 128 payments before you can file the exemption paperwork to have your student debt taken care of. Veterans, on the other hand, you have to be so disabled and get 100% permanent and total before your student loan is paid off.
That seems harder. That seems like a unsurmountable mountain to some people.
I'm here to tell you right now, there's kids coming out of basic training that we have seen that have been separated from the military that are getting 50% for PTSD. So either way you look at it, I hate to say it, but the system is broken. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll never discredit those guys because of the simple fact of it is that, they still put their life on the line and they signed on the dotted line. But, I also think that they need to be vetted a little bit more through the VA system before they do that. And it goes back to my original point when we first started this conversation was, these lawyers that are charging like 18, 19, even $3,000 to have all this paperwork filled out. The thing about it is the criteria is out there. It takes somebody to actually file the paperwork through the VA system. But these guys can sit there and study all the criteria, and as long as you have the evidence to back it up, you'll get it. But these lawyers that are charging this and sending them to these doctors, they're basically coaching them. Now, I won't discredit this because of the simple fact of it is I know people that have used lawyers before. I know people that have used companies like this before. But at the end of the day, I don't think that anybody should ever profit off veterans. Eric at CJ3 Foundation, he prides himself on this. I wish I could be exactly like Eric when it comes to my board, or when it comes to my foundation. But Eric doesn't ever want to receive a paycheck. My board, when we sat down, we talked about the possibility of me getting paid. I looked at what the VA was paying me, and I said, I won't take anything more than what the VA is paying me. And everybody's like, well, why? I said, because of the simple fact of it is if I make $2,500 a month in disability, and our foundation can afford to pay me, I'll take $2,000. Because in my thought process with me, if I can't live off $4,000 a month, I don't need to be doing anything. I'm doing something stupid.
Around here.
Stupid.
Yeah, especially around here.
I mean, now, don't get me wrong. If we were a big conglomerate corporation like other people that have TV ads, and I lived in California, and they came to me and said, hey, we're going to pay you $130,000 a year because that's what the going rate is out here. Okay, $130,000 a year might get me a 750 square foot
studio apartment, with a couple roommates.
Yeah, that's about this big behind the Hollywood Hills sign.
But all that money gets taken out of the pot to help the people that need it as well. So it's like a tough situation to have to battle with yourself too. Where you're bringing up a lot of very interesting things that I don't know a lot about. I don't come from a military family. I didn't serve in the military. I have plenty of friends who are veterans, but they're young and they're just now getting out, or they're still going back. And so they're not to the point where they're going to have to start to deal with that mess.
Yeah.
And so I think about it, and when they want to have these discussions, I don't have anything for them besides if I can help you, man, I can. But for somebody like me who cares about my friends who are veterans and people that may be struggling, what are some things that we can do to not necessarily, I don't want to say help, but to be on their side when there are so many veterans that are specifically struggling with not just getting into the VA, but just staying alive day to day, which is a serious problem.
You know, Eric and I did a podcast out in Iowa for a local radio station, and Eric said it the best: love on them. You know, that's the biggest thing. Like, I can tell you, what? Hi, Justin. Anyway, one of the biggest things that saved my life is my wife. You know, not every veteran out there, you know, has the aspirations to get married, you know, but it's also the same simple thing, though, too. I have somebody in my household that cares about me and that will ride or die with me. And, you know, what civilians need to understand is just because we're combat veterans, we're also people. You know, my wife gets so mad at me and one of my best friends, Andy, down in Panama City Beach, because we act like an idiot. Like, we'll drive through PCB, like going from one end of the beach to the other. We'll wave at everybody. Like the motor scooters, other cars, everything. It's like, hi. And she's like, why are you guys doing that? Well, he's a Marine and I'm Army. So our mentality of it is you never know who's having a bad day.
Yeah, that's
because, you know, when I had my last suicide attempt, there was no flag. I mean, there was no red flags for anybody to pick up on. Like, I woke up, everybody out of my house was gone. I took my dog, put him outside, and loved on him for a little bit. He wanted to lay in the shade. I went back in. Next thing you know, I almost died.
Yeah.
You know, there was no warning signs. The thing about veterans is it some of us, it takes a lot for us to ask for help because we're so independent and we've seen so much. And you know, it's hard for a lot of us to tell our stories to civilians because, you know, now we're in that culture of everybody thinks that veterans are like Call of Duty. I play Call of Duty all the time. I can tell you this right now: everything I've been in combat, nothing like that. You know, because I've seen people that have gotten shot, and last time I checked, they didn't respawn like 50 feet behind me and come out guns a-blazing. You know.
Yeah.
It's, you know, that's the big majority of it. But what you can always do is, you know, thank them for their service, have a conversation with them. One of the big things that, you know, Steve Dame, a real good friend of mine, likes to do is invite him to church. You know, I will tell you, I have a hard time with some of these groups that are based out of church. Because, you know, you walk in the door and you think that you're there, you think that you're going to be surrounded by, you know, other veterans, which you are, but then it instantly turns like that and it turns into a Bible study and you don't talk about anything. You know, I think that talk therapy is great. Like in this situation, like this helps me talking to you guys and, you know, getting that message out there. But in the same retrospect, like my wife can attest to it. For the past 3 nights, I've been on the phone with a vet from Colorado Springs. Like, she is, from what I gather, she is an amazing person. She's just down on her luck. And she's like, I need help. Okay, well, I don't have very many resources out there, so I'm going to do everything I can to try to figure out how to help you. You know, and she called me last night, or she called me the night before last. It was like 9 o'clock our time. And she goes, I just need to vent. Send it. You know, give me a minute. Let me pour a drink. Let me grab a cigarette. I'm going to go sit out on the front porch, smoke a cigar. Tell me what you got. You know, and that helps us.
Yeah.
But as civilians, I mean, you guys can't be scared of us just because we did a job. You know, it goes back to the stigma of, you know, kids nowadays that think that, you know, that parents that tell kids, hey, if you keep acting this way, the cops are going to come. I can tell you my brain cannot process it. I hate that. Every parent that says that, I think should shut the hell up and just walk away. Because, you know, we were always taught when we were younger, the cops are there to help us. You know, same way with the military. You know, a lot of people don't see it in third world countries, but we're actually there to help.
Right.
You know, it's the same way, or it's the same way now. You know, like if I met you on the street and I was having a bad day and you walked up to me and was like, hey man, how's your day? I might look at you and be like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
You know, why are you talking to me?
Mm-hmm.
But then my brain might kick, be like, oh man, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah.
And keep walking about my day. And that might just resonate in the back of my mind at some other point in time throughout the day is like, hey man, you know, I had some stranger that I didn't even know come up and say, hey man, how's your day?
Yeah.
You know, it's like that. You go to a bar, you see a vet, if they're drinking, buy them a beer. Be like, hey man, thanks for your service here. Let me buy you a beer. You know, there are some type of people, I will tell you, that you got to tread lightly because they think that, you know, the only reason why you're buying them beer is because you're thanking them for their service. And it's not. I mean, but, you know, there's so many different things that you can do. Like, you know, I tell a lot of people, you really want to get involved, do a fundraiser. You know, find a veteran 501c3, get in touch with them, be like, hey, I see that you do housing. What's your needs? Oh, okay. Well, you need 25 sheet or you need 25 bed sheet or bed sets. Cool. Give me a minute. Get a big group of your friends. Call a whole bunch of your buddies. Challenge them. You know, I've got a buddy of mine that her kid was trying to raise money for lacrosse. I called every person that I knew that owned a business, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna throw in some money. You match my donation.
Yeah.
You know, same way. Eric, while we were out in Iowa, he put out a challenge out there for something like that. One of the local radio stations did what they called a virtual quarter and a handshake. They raised money for it.
Oh, awesome.
You know, it's just, there's so many things that can be done. But I mean, I will tell you, the worst thing that you can ever do, because we're so programmed, is don't tell a veteran or anybody that you're going to do something that you can't get done, because we've already facing enough with the VA. Like that's a big thing. Like the VA tells me every month, oh, we're going to get you straightened out on new meds. You know, the last time I had a med checkup was 2013.
A couple days. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, they're like,
couple
oh,
days. Yeah.
but Pfizer Corporation's got this brand new drug. We want you to try it. Oh, by the way, you need to come in and get a coronavirus vaccine. You know, okay, cool. But I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you know, there's so many different ways that you can get engaged and help veterans. It's just ridiculous. Now, I will tell you, if you're a civilian and you're trying to start a 501c3 to a non-for-profit foundation to try to help veterans, it's easier for you to focus that effort and get with one of us that are already stood up and help support us. The one thing that Battleground 22 prides ourselves in is we have a big group of veterans foundations that we will always go to bat for. You guys have heard me talk a lot about CJ3 Foundation, and I will tell you, had it not been for Eric and CJ3 Foundation, Battleground 22 wouldn't be where we're at today. Because what everybody doesn't see behind the scenes is they see that I have a board of directors. They see that everything looks like it's all stuck together and that it's so wired tight. I called Eric this morning crying. I was like, dude, here's what's going on. He was like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, no, seriously, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. Cool. Call me back when you figure it out. And I sit and waller in my self-pity for a minute. And then I was like, oh, well, we can go this way, that, you know, and we cause each other to keep driving, you know, because we're always there. But I mean, you know, just love on them. Yeah. I mean, that's the easiest way how it is. You know, you never know what somebody's going through.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's true.
You know, my wife has bad days every day because she works in retail. I pity her. You know, she has to deal with people on a daily,
easy,
especially during this COVID stuff. And she comes home and she's like, we need to talk. And I'm like, what did I do? You know,
you grab the cigar, you grab the drink, you sit out on the porch, tell me all about it.
I promise you I didn't do anything. And, you know, there's times where she takes her frustration out on me because, you know, I travel way too much. I mean, I don't say way too much, but I travel so much,
right?
Doing different veteran stuff or going hunting with some of my sponsors, or, you know, or doing different trainings and different stuff like that. And, you know, I will say I feel there's times where I do neglect my wife because, you know, she has like 3 days off in a row and she's scrubbing the entire house because she's OCD and a neat freak.
Yeah.
Like, my favorite game is to grab something that she just put down and move it and just watch her flip, or put something right on top of it and walk away. But you know, there's times where it's like I've got an hour in between a meeting, but the way my brain works is I'm so go that
Really? I had no idea.
yeah, I see.
You're the kind of guy you don't even have to wind them up. You just point them in a direction and you just keep going.
Yeah, and that's
You got a motor.
That's the reason why. That's the reason why the foundation is so great for me, because I can accomplish 50 million things in a day and go to bed and it's like cool. And then I get up the next morning, I'm like, did I really do this? I mean, maybe I need to do it this way.
Yeah,
but
that's awesome.
I mean, I'll tell everybody, love them up. You know, buy them a beer. You know, offer, if you've got a veteran in your church and you want to get to know them, offer to cook them a home cooked meal.
Oh yeah.
You know, especially if you know they live alone, or Christmas time. You know, the one thing that we're going to start doing as Battleground 22s, we're going to start doing a toy drive.
Awesome.
You know, you guys will see us over here in Owensboro. I promise you will see us over here.
Definitely keep us in the loop. Shoot us a Facebook message for anything you guys got going on. We'd love to share it on our page. Help you guys. You know, you guys are really doing something that takes a lot of courage. It makes a tremendous difference in the community. It takes those people who are outside, disenfranchised, and brings them back in, allows them to be restored to the people that they were before the troubles that they fell on. You know, it's a tough time, but their whole lives don't have to be that way. And obviously this podcast is all about highlighting different people, individuals in communities that do things that, you know, lights their passion. And you know, I'm very moved by your words. You're very, like you said, you got a motor in you, and I feel like you might have found your calling for the foreseeable future.
Too.
I think all the guys at Battleground 22 and all the people that you work with are very fortunate to have a guy and a mindset like yours around. So hopefully you take some solace in that. But at the same time, you know, keep us in the loop. We want to make sure that, you know, our audience, which does have veterans and it does have people who are currently active in the military, to keep informed about what's going on with your foundation and everything in that sphere, because you never know. People will, you know, I'm sure you're surprised every single day with the people you talk to and have to communicate with.
Well, and another thing too, because I see Justin over here popping off all these comments.
See that?
Yeah. You know, to piggyback off what you can do for veterans, you can do the same thing for police and fire and EMS.
Yeah, of course.
I will tell you that, you know, I fill in part-time from time to time when the full-timers need vacation or anything. Like, the greatest time of the year for me is around Christmas time or Thanksgiving time, when kids start bringing treats. I mean, that just lights my world up.
Really?
And, you know, I'll admit I'm the fat body of our whole entire department, so I like to eat. But, I mean, it's the same way. Like, you know, I'm real active with the American Legion, and every year the fire station, Evansville Fire Department, that's right down the road from our Legion, we will cook them a whole entire spread.
Awesome.
Like, we'll serve our veterans, and then what everybody doesn't see is there's more people back in the kitchen cooking the stuff for the fire department. We take it up to the fire department and drop it off. Because, I mean, I know what it's like, you know, to have to work that shift during the holiday and be away from your family, you know. You know, so it's one of those deals where you can always love on them. You know, the one thing I will say about cops is cops are very leery if you hand them food. Like, if you,
makes sense.
Just because of the way that the culture is. But I mean, I will, you know, some of these people that are paying attention, your audience, you know, I'll challenge everybody. I've done it before. My wife's seen me do it.
Hand a cop an edible.
No, it's nothing even like that. But, you know, like next time you're at the, you know, let's just say next time you're at McDonald's and you're in the drive-thru, if there's a cop two windows back from you that's getting their order, pay for it. You know, same way. We go to restaurants from time to time. I'll see a cop sitting over there, or I'm able to identify cops when they're off duty, when they're with their families. I mean, I've paid for many a cop's meal or many a firefighter's meal, or just even the same thing, buy gift cards, keep them with you. You know, the Jeep craze. You know, I don't know if you guys have it over here in Owensboro, but
we definitely do.
Yeah,
it's obnoxious.
Yeah, the stupid, or, you know, I won't say stupid, but the little duck things. Yeah. My wife's Jeep has been ducked like 4 or 5 times, and I'm like, couldn't lift like a Wendy's Blizzard or something. You know, leave me a gift card on there when I'm driving this thing. But, you know, every once in a while, like during the day, we'll buy gift cards and we'll just go drive around and we'll find cops like when they're just sitting there and just, be very respectful of them because they already have a hard enough job. Just don't go run up on them. Hey, because you're going to, it's like a veteran. They're going to go from 0 to 60 in no time flat. But just walk up and be like, hey, I just want to thank you for your service here. I got you a gift card to like Wendy's or Cheddar's or something like that. Hell, you never know because they might, as soon as you give them that gift call, or that gift card, they might run off to a call and it might be some little kid that, their parents have just left them or something. And now all of a sudden, your gift card's paying for food to feed that little kid while they're waiting on CPS. Or, you might have given it to a firefighter and, the firefighter might have given it to the auxiliary unit and the auxiliary unit gives it to, somebody whose house just burnt down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, when I say love or when I love up on them, I mean, it can go any which way. But there's veteran shelters here that you can volunteer for. You can call them, get their need. What a lot of people don't understand is Evansville Rescue Mission. I send a lot of veterans down there. If I can't place them in housing like that night, I'll get them, or at least I'll get them a warm bed. Evansville Rescue Mission always has a huge need for stuff like that. Linens, socks, whatever, cleaning supplies. Yeah. It is what it is. But, I challenge everybody, find a 501c3, a veterans organization, and donate to them. You don't have to go pick like Wounded Warrior or something like that. You can do your research. Get on GuideStar. Eric at CJ3 Foundation, he's 100% transparent. He's got that platinum seal. Like everything that he does is 100% laid right out there on the internet. We are hoping to be that way once the IRS quits hijacking us. Yeah. It is what it is, but I mean, just love them up, because that's the difference between a horrible shit-tastic day to going to a normal day.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, we're super thankful you came in and super thankful for all the information. And for everybody still watching, we appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. If you haven't already, please head over to Battleground 22 Foundation's Facebook page, drop them a like, stay up to date on everything that's going on with them. And once the IRS quits fucking around, make sure they get a bunch of donations. And along that same lines, guys, if you haven't already, please go ahead and like our page. Like this stream, comment, say what's up to everybody. It just helps out our channel as well. But Chase, you have any closers, man? Are we good to wrap this thing up?
Just like I said, I'm glad that somebody like you who years ago you were in a very tough situation, wanting to end your life in a very spontaneous fashion, that you've been to your lowest low and you're able to rebound from that and use the podium, the foundation, no pun intended, that you've built to help other people like yourself. So I want to personally thank you for that, because that's something that not everybody's cut out for, and
Absolutely.
You're making a tremendous difference, whether you see it or not. I know you do see it because you actually care, and you're there doing it. You're not.
And it's kind of like typically people just say thank you for your service, but you're a veteran, firefighter, and now you run a non-for-profit. So it's like,
I'm kind of
thank you for your services.
Yeah, I'm kind of a walking shit show when it comes to that. So,
but yeah, man, we do, like I said, do appreciate you. And if you could, for everybody that's watching that might not have caught it early in the stream, a couple of the nonprofits that you mentioned earlier that you were close with that you would recommend to people.
CJ3 Foundation is one of the biggest ones that we partner with and we push out every day. Eric and his team do a great job providing mental health services and service dogs to veterans. It's a lot more than that. I mean, I'm fortunate to be part of the CJ3 family. I don't have a dog. We've actually talked about doing a dog for me, but I want to make sure that other veterans get taken care of first. And that's not me being selfish or anything like that, but when I'm ready for a dog, I'll know when my time is. CJ3 Foundation, you can find them on Facebook. You can find them on Instagram. You can find their website is cj3foundation.org. Okay. But I'll harp it again. I mean, Eric is doing leaps and bounds. He's got a veteran coming through right now, I think Thomas Lahane is the veteran that's coming through right now that's getting ready to land in Iowa and go through the mental health piece of it, and then he'll move on to Wisconsin to Jesse's Kennel to receive his service dog.
Super cool.
Every time Eric takes on a veteran, Eric costs his foundation about $25,000. Yeah. So we are, right now with us not being in 501c3 status, we're really pushing that brotherhood that we have with CJ3 to be able to make sure that Eric can keep doing what he's doing. I mean, ours is an easy piece. I don't have anybody that on our payroll right now, so we're good. I mean, I'm paying for everything out of my own pocket. Website design and our CPA and everything, which I'm fine with because it's something I really want to do. But eventually we'll have the IRS will hand us our paperwork and we'll be like, haha, look at us. And then, everybody,
off to the races.
Yeah. I challenge everybody to go like our Facebook and share it because I'm here to tell you right now, I can't really go into specific detail, but the second that IRS paperwork hits, it's game over. Like we are literally devoted on changing the game within Southern Indiana and the surrounding counties on what we're getting ready to do. And whether legislators want to jump on board and help us out, the one thing that I can tell you is the worst thing that you can do is tell me no. Like we've sat through meetings and people are like, no, it'll never happen. And I'm like, bet.
Yeah.
Let's do this. And my wife is like, please somebody pull his batteries because I will sit up at night and she's like, I can't sleep because you're tapping on your laptop. And I'm like, I've got this figured out.
You got a motor, man. Yeah. You got a motor. And if it wasn't for people like you, there's not a whole lot that would get done. So we appreciate it, man. We appreciate you coming in today.
Yeah. The only thing I want to do real quick is I want to give a shout out to McCutcheonville firefighters that are on this live stream right now. Justin's on here, so this should be a training. This should be a training time since everybody's logged on right now, so we can get training hours in mental health. So
absolutely,
just throwing that out there.
Awesome, man. Well, like I said, keep us up to date so we can share your stuff. And whenever you got free time again, we'd love to have you back in and talk about
Sounds good.
the foundation.
We're not
and
traveling to Kansas and negative 26 degree weather. And
No, I'm actually next week. I'm headed up to Jessephane's Canine Service in Iron Ridge, where the service dogs and the police dogs are at. I'm taking a big group of tennis balls up to drop them off at the kennel because they're starting cop classes and dogs like to tear balls apart.
Of course.
So I'll be up there for 2 days, but it's kind of a rest of relaxation thing. And then come back, and then in April we're taking about 3 or 4 vets on a turkey hunt.
Heck yeah.
So it'd be fun.
Absolutely.
Awesome,
well, thanks, man. Thank you guys, and we will see you next Wednesday at 6:00 right back here on Takeover Podcast. Thanks, guys.